retired Army Sergeant Major. What was it like being drilled by Michael Barrymore? I said. At which point the bloke ran through the door and went, we've got to get in. They were taken away out of Leicester Square. Nobody got an interview, and I had to walk back into that room, and they went, Kyle only got one question, and it was, what was it like? Anyway, that's a true story.
Really?
Yes.
So you wrecked it for everybody else?
Absolutely wrecked it. And she was doing her nails going, you got any other questions? I'm not telling you which one. Emma.
Tarrant's a mate of yours, so he would.
Oh, there you go. Ian Collins in the afternoon. Thank you very much, Steve, for an amazing show. He's back tomorrow afternoon. The Don, the voice of the balls, the housewives' choice.
And it's going to be a fabulous show. Drive Time with Jeremy Kyle is here on the other side of the news at 4.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Here you go, just gone 4 o'clock. We're live and exclusive across the United Kingdom. It is the 18th of December, my friends, on Drive Time, which means one thing and one thing only. It is the birthday of Ryan, the lanky man Thrussell. Yes, he's called Thrussell. It's not a disease. That's his name. He is 30... How old are you today, Russ? 32 years of age today, Ryan. We give him a round of applause. And if you'd like to send, by the way, a voice note to him saying happy birthday, he's had champagne, he's had wine. And I'm only going to say this to you, Russ. Make sure you keep looking at the door behind you in the next 3 hours. That's all I'm going to say. It's a birthday surprise and it's on the way. Listen, welcome to the show. So much to talk about. Russell Quirk in just a tick as ever. If you want to be part of this vain attempt at a radio and television programme, 0344 419 1000 is my telephone number. You can text 87222. Start your message with the word talk. I'm not going to lie. Woke up this morning with a sore throat. Mrs. Kyle not in the slightest bit sympathetic. Don't come near me, she said, for the 365th day on the trot. Hardly surprising with the number of kids I've got. What do you want to talk about today? The waspy compensation betrayal These are women born in the 50s who expected to retire at the age of 60, who were promised by successive governments that they would get this money finally. When Labour were in opposition, Rayner, Starmer, Reeves, the lot of them said, you'll get that money. They've only been in power 5 months rather. Now they're not getting the money. They are added to a list of millions of people who have been promised things by this Labour government and then have been let down. Pensioners with their winter fuel checks. We talk farmers. We talk ex-service men and women. We talk Brexiteers, businesses. The list is endless. What do we make of this man as we head towards the end of the year? I bet he's shaking his little shoes, by the way. Did you see those pictures of Elon Musk at Mar-a-Lago, Trump's fortress in Florida? There was Nigel Farage and Nick Candy, the new treasurer of the Reform Party, and it is rumoured that Elon Musk is thinking of giving up to $100 million to bankroll reform, which will change, by the way, and I mean this, change the face of British politics. We'll talk non-crime hate incidents. We'll talk about New Year's Eve railway chaos. We'll talk about a lot. But most of all, I want to slag off the BBC because it's my last show of the year. The BBC is under severe pressure to play that Christmas #1 contender parodying Sir Keir Starmer's winter fuel cuts. Are we allowed to play it, Ryan? Ryan, are we allowed to play it? Have we got a bit of it now? This song is by Sir Starmer and the Granny Harmers. I want you to download it. I want it to go to #1. Little Suso, coming up now. Play.
It'll be freezing this Christmas while our money goes abroad. It'll be freezing this Christmas. Rachel Reeves is a fraud. It'll be cold, so cold, without fuel.
How good is that? I mean, that is the reality if you're a pensioner. Russell Quirker's joined me. How good's that song?
It's phenomenal. Everyone should download it. How appropriate, and what a message to send to a government that someone goes to the effort of writing it, producing it, getting it out there, and millions of people, a bit like that petition that was signed, which is at nearly 3 million for a general election, millions and millions of people are going to download that track and talk about it for a long time.
And it's very interesting, isn't it? Because as we know, the BBC so utterly biased, so utterly... I mean, it's still... How long? 16 months, 15, 16 months since the atrocities by Hamas, that terrorist organisation. We were doing another show just now. Still, the BBC does not call Hamas a terrorist organisation. Are they going to play that? Daring to insult the bedwetting Labour government. Can't wait, man.
How can they... Seriously, how can the BBC... So, Radio 1, Radio 2, and so on, how can they not play it if it becomes the most downloaded track of Christmas?
Do you not remember...
Are they going to ban it?
Well, they banned Frankie Goes to Hollywood. Relax. Because they had the word... But do you know why they banned that? They didn't play the Sex Pistols?
Yeah, but this hasn't got offensive words in it. No. It might be...
Sorry, can we hear it again? I'm going to do this all day. This is utterly fantastic. If you haven't heard this, download it. This is by Sir Starmer and the Granny Harmers. This needs to be Christmas #1. We need to pressurise the BBC across all formats to play this. This must be #1. Have another go.
It'll be freezing this Christmas while our money goes abroad. It'll be freezing this Christmas. Rachel Reeves is a fraud. It'll be cold, so cold, without fuel at home.
It's brilliant, man.
Without inciting anything inappropriate, of course, Jeremy. That
inciting, go and download it. It's not inciting anything.
Hear me out. So, you know what Steve Bray used to do whenever someone was being interviewed near Downing Street or at College Green? He'd come along with his megaphone and play music.
In the mornings, he's put me to shame.
Why don't we encourage a few peaceful protesters to stand outside Downing Street playing that track?
Absolutely. All you see in Downing Street and you see in Trafalgar Square, and we're going to the Commons tomorrow night, aren't we?
Yeah. I'm not important enough to have been invited.
Oh, God, here we go again. Anyway, I'll sort it. Anyway,
although I was in the room last night with Nick Candy and Nigel Farage.
Straight off the plane. How was that?
So that was, well, I'm sworn to secrecy, of course, but let's just say that there was a very, and I mean very, positive buzz in that room. Liz Truss was there, lots of very interesting people.
I think Liz Truss will turn to reform.
I couldn't possibly comment on the question that I asked her, which is in a very, very similar vein.
Do you think that they would accept her?
I'm sure they would, but she's neither confirming nor denying such a thought.
So let's move from what I hope is the Christmas number one to the very story you just mentioned. Elon Musk, there was that great picture a couple of days ago in front of a portrait of Donald Trump in cricket whites, ludicrous, in Mar-a-Lago. A picture of Nick Candy, the new billionaire treasurer of reform. He'd flown to Mar-a-Lago, fitted and arranged the meeting with Elon Musk, took Nigel Farage with him.
Yep.
There's the picture on the screen. There are really, really strong rumours that Elon Musk could decide to bankroll Farage and the Reform Party. Let me just ask you this. Is that genuinely, though, I'm not talking about the fighting machine, going to beat the two-party system that will never seemingly allow another party to get enough votes to form a government?
Look, I think...
Do you know what I mean by that?
Look, let me just qualify that despite the fact I was in a very interesting room full of very interesting people last night, I don't know anything, right? So they definitely didn't start talking amongst themselves as to exactly what their approach, strategy, tactics are going to be. But is it more than a rumour? Yes, I think it is. There is no way that Nigel Farage and Nick Candy, a business person whose wife, of course, Holly, was potentially going to be...
Named after a sheet.
She was going to be a reform candidate in the previous election, decided not to at the last minute. It's much more than a rumour. There is no way those guys go over to Mar-a-Lago for an audience with Donald Trump and also Elon Musk.
On a private jet, by the way.
I suspect, this is pure speculation, Nick Candy and Nigel Farage have it exactly in mind what they're going to do in terms of bankrolling reform now to another level that I don't think we've seen in British politics
But my question is not that. Is it going to make any difference when you've got a two-party system and they got 4 million votes?
So here's what's going to happen. I don't know if Elon Musk is going to put any money into Britain. Many people will say, well, that's completely inappropriate. Well, then I ask you to look at how the Labour Party has been funded over the last 30 or 40 years.
And the Tory Party.
To the tune of millions of pounds of union money and donors, of course. And let's talk about the Lib Dems taking money from convicted fraudsters many years ago, not paying it back, right? So let's not do the virtuous bit around donations. And I suspect even if Elon Musk is going to give some tips to the likes of Nick Candy and Nigel Farage, there will be a political revolution, a sea change in British politics over the next 2 or 3 years, guaranteed.
You absolutely believe that?
I absolutely
love your thoughts on this, peeps. Do you think reform, if they get that money, even if they get Elon Musk's ability to understand how to run a business via Nick Candy and Nigel Farage, will it make a difference? Can they essentially beat, if you like, a system that's lasted forever? All the main parties will never talk about proportional representation. Reform are, the Liberal Democrats are, because the Reform Party got 500,000 more votes than the Liberal Democrats and got 67 seats less. So there has to be something to balance out. What do you make of that, peeps? 0344 499 1000. You can add in your thoughts on that Christmas potential number one. Let's talk about waspy women. This sort of broke in the show yesterday.
This is a disgrace.
Another extraordinary example of this pillock, Starmer, not understanding and alienating a huge swathe of this country.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's incredible to have to, almost on a weekly basis, add to the list of people that Keir Starmer and his government have slighted. Those that he's taken by surprise in terms of pensioners, farmers and business people, whereby he has taxed them, taken money from them and so on. But who would have thought a man that stood there with his front bench, the likes of Angela Rayner and others, with placards saying how they will support the waspy women, to the tune of putting aside, I quote verbatim, putting aside tens of billions of pounds to help these women that now are coming up to retirement and having to wait another 5 years over and above what they expected to do. 5 months in government, yet again, they turned around, stuck their fingers up at these women and just said, yeah, sorry, we're not feeling it. It's a disgrace, Jeremy.
But I go back to the question I asked earlier, right? Does nobody talk into this man's head? Because there's people you can upset, right? But I would have thought pensioners 10 million, waspy women 3.5 million, farmers 2 million, Brexiteers 17 million. I would have thought that these people were going to have a massive say when the next election comes around. I know a lot of people go, but Jess, let's be perfectly honest, like, it doesn't really matter. They'll have forgotten. Pensioners ain't going to forget. Waspy women ain't going to forget.
They're not
He's an
forget.
idiot,
They're not going to forget this. So this campaign has been going on for years and years and years. You know, this stuff, this change in the pension rules has been going on for, whatever it is, 15 years or so. I think, look, if you want to give Starmer the benefit of the doubt politically, which is a very hard thing to do, frankly, a very difficult thing to do, I think you can, but it might well be that he and his lot, his advisors, have identified the people that they don't think are ever going to vote for them, so we may as well upset them. Whether that be pensioners that traditionally he would think vote for the Conservatives, farmers and indeed business people and so on. But when it comes to ordinary working women that are still working women and now have got to work, I mean, it's the epitome of an about turn.
Let's explain to people, they thought they could retire at 60.
Yeah. and now 65.
Now it's 65 and soon to be 66.
But Starmer has talked incessantly about protecting working people. Now, the absolute example of that, a demonstration of that, is a woman in her late 50s that thinks that because she's worked all of her life, can look forward to a retirement in 2 or 3 years' time. Now, to literally pull the drawbridge up, stick your fingers up and say, sorry, you've got another 5, 6, 7 years. I mean, how is that helping working people?
Somebody said earlier, one wonders who the hell's advising this idiot. 0344 499 1000 is the telephone number. Text 87222. We will get you on between now and 7 o'clock. I mean, this is guaranteed to send most sane people through the bleeding roof. And I've kept it to now because it'll do something to my heart rate. New Year's Eve railway chaos as train managers announce strike over rest days, i.e. New Year's Eve, Christmas Eve, and every Sunday for 5 months. This is the Avanti, North West Line, Manchester-based. Can I just ask, are these not the people, I nearly said the wrong word, who got a massive pay rise just now from Labour when it arrived in 10 Downing Street?
Well, they've obviously, within the transport divisions of the public sector, they've all had various inflation-busting pay rises. So whether it's train drivers, whether it's, workers or indeed managers. It starts to feel, though, doesn't it, that this is less about money and conditions and pay and so on. And obviously, look, the unions wanted to protect what effectively are 1960s working practices, the kind of everybody out thing, why should we pick that up? Or, don't you dare disturb my 1 hour lunch, because if you come in as a manager 55 minutes into my lunch and talk to me, my hour starts again. That stuff still exists. That's what's been protected.
Can I tell you a true story? This is genuinely true. First I did the Jeremy Carr show, that'll be 20 years ago, right? I've got I've never got a live audience, I've got crew, I've got everything. About 20 minutes into the first ever show, the wire was caught and I pushed my... This is symptomatic of Great Britain. I pushed my chair back. A bloke came out the shadows. He went, no, mate, listen, I know you're new around here. I'm cables and chairs, and if you do that again, we'll walk the hell out. Spend the rest of the day moving me
and that is alive and well in our
that is alive and well in our country.
My point was going to be, and look, we've had lots and lots of union leaders, former union leaders on this channel, that's Steve Headley and Mick Lynch and so on. What I think we have to accept now is that this isn't so much about money and conditions, it's about anarchy. It's about extreme left-wing individuals that masquerade as part of a union just to try and disrupt people, including commuters, because I guess maybe the left see commuters as rich people because they've got enough money to spend on...
I think the left see anybody as rich.
I know, but it's spite. This is spite. It's a disgrace. I don't understand. I mean, if I was in charge of this stuff, let's say I was the transport minister, whoever it is now, because
you can't because you haven't committed fraud.
Yes. So whoever it is at the moment until next week, I would just genuinely say you're all fired. And I actually, to hell with the consequences. Get the managers driving the trains, whatever. You've got to do what Thatcher did. I mean, remember her back in the early mid-80s when it came to the miners and others, just say, fine, you can fight me if you like, I'll fight you back and I'm going to win. You're all fired. Do that. Send a message.
Really interesting. Final story today. The recording of non-crime hate incidents should be scrapped in their current form. A police chief has said. Donna Jones, who we'd hoped to have on the show, but there are logistical problems. Hampshire's Police and Crime Commissioner said the practice should be subject to a lock, stock and barrel review. Somebody in the police talking sense. But what even... Non-crime hating. What does that mean? Because I don't like your suit, I'm going to be arrested.
Look, I'm all for law and order, and there being laws, and obviously
of course.
some are better written laws than others. But why are we, and definitely the police, getting involved with things that by the very nature of what they're called, non-crimes? It's for the birds.
But I want to know, because we're very easily and right, I think, to criticise the men and the women on the streets who are doing this. This has got to come from above. Peter Blexley always tells me this is because academia has taken over the police, and the people above have never served on the streets. They've got no idea. It's about spreadsheets and ticking boxes and all that rubbish. And actually, they don't know what it is to be a copper. So who's to blame for this crap?
Well, it's legislation, but it's also legislation that is wrongly interpreted. I mean, let's take the example of Alison Pearson, where she gets a knock on the door by the police that want to chastise her for something that she said that they believe was inappropriate. And of course, look, nothing has happened. They've now dropped that. It's because that there are certain woke, left-leaning members of the police force, the civil service, name your public sector, that because there aren't actually crimes to stop the people that they don't like on the right saying what they don't want them to say, they masquerade things as being... offences that aren't quite offences, and that now allows and actually ties up the resources of our police. No wonder there's no burglars caught. No wonder there's, you know, we were just talking on another show about the crime in London under Sadiq Khan.
Crazy.
3.5 million offences, 160 murders, whatever it is, 18,000 knife crimes, while the police are knocking on journalist doors saying, we would like to take you into the station to talk to you about a few words that you said on
in
social media.
2005, 0344 499 1000, the waspy women have been stung by Starmer and Labour, says Graham in Bushy. Do you know that I was conceived in Bushy? Moving on. Now, let's go to the phone lines. Let's go to Sussex. It's posh there. Anne even. You're on Talk Drive. 2 minutes. What you got, Anne?
2 minutes quick then. One very quick one, I won't get diverted, is why do you think Blair wanted everyone to go to university to have what we've got today? The second thing that is really serious with the pension problem for the waspy women is the fact that nobody has equated the huge loss of the voluntary sector. 65 billion plus they saved the economy, the volunteers doing all that work for nothing. Where now that women and men will all be working so much later, that means that we now have to pay far more for care for the elderly that women carried out freely, and far more for childcare because they help to look after the babies and young children for women. The voluntary sector has lost a lot, and it is costing the taxpayer a fortune. So actually, when women did retire or didn't work, they actually did save the nation a fortune. And I had to work in the voluntary sector all my life because my husband was a carer. And I worked until I was 80. Oh, my television's come on. And I worked until I was 80. So I needed volunteers to do everything we were doing. Now we're losing them all, I'm sorry to say.
How old are you, my darling? Am I allowed to ask?
Oh, dear.
Come on, love.
I have now reached the age of 83.
83, you're amazing. Let me ask you a question. You're 83 years. Have you ever seen, heard or been involved with such an incompetent government as this Starmer lot? Seriously.
Oh, my dear, never. And I did try to warn people. And I'm sorry, I have mentioned before the motives behind the way governments are working at the moment in the West, which is to destroy the Western world. And we will all end up in poverty. No, and this government, and why do you think he's going all over the world? He doesn't care about ordinary English, British, Scottish, Irish people. I don't know why they don't like us.
I completely agree, my darling. We really appreciate you being on. Anne in Sussex on Talk Drive 421. If you want to be on, 0834 44 499 1000. It's Ryan's birthday. It is his birthday. Send a voice note. Say happy birthday, Lanky. We're going to an ad break. Before that, after that, we have got broadcasting royalty. Quirk, you're not leaving. You're going to move to the side and make way for the king, and you're going to watch and learn. We're going to the ad break with Eivor the Engine. Have a listen.
Good King Wenceslas looked out at the Scrooge Keir Starmer, hated by the people and each and every farmer. Old folk viewed this heartless man as mean and harsh and cruel, stealing their £300 for their winter fuel.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
About 4:25, we're live across the United Kingdom. We are in the presence of broadcasting royalty. I made him, I'll never destroy. Michael Graham is in the building.
Hello.
And I've asked Quirk to move to the right so that he can...
I can't move much further to the right. He's not got much to win.
We're not going to groom you. We're going to... No, we're joking.
Too late.
Good
Yeah.
man.
Too late.
I hate to say this, says V from North Yorkshire, but this government is correct regarding the WASPy situation. I was born in 56 and I remember getting a letter, and this was the biggest conversation everyone who I work with was having. Don't understand that? Christina Jez. The more help from Elon for reform the UK, the better. I'm a pensioner. I've never been so scared of a government in my life. This is not what we want. Ryan, happy birthday, says Graham Pack. Maybe you can be one of the mascots at the Vic on Boxing Day. Thanks for getting my messages read out. Kind regards. This is, I mean, really, what does that mean? Because Ryan's 32 today.
Is that a good thing to be a mascot of the Vic?
Goodness me.
What, is that the old Vic or the Queen Vic? What is it? I've no idea. Vicarage Road, what a load of old crap. Anyway, Michael Graham,
Yes.
welcome.
Thank you very much.
Michael's got two brilliant stories. Do you want to do the serious one first?
We'll do the serious one first.
This is absolutely outrageous.
This has been handed to me just as I came in. The government has criticised Moscow's desperate rhetoric after a senior ally of Vladimir Putin has threatened the Times newspaper over its coverage of the assassination of a Russian general. This is a guy who was blown up by a scooter, basically.
Yes.
General Krylov, who was in charge of Russia's nuclear, biological and chemical defence troops. He was killed by a bomb hidden in a scooter outside his Moscow apartment on Tuesday.
Yes.
The Times have covered it, obviously, in the way that they would. They're part of our organisation here.
Of course.
News UK, brilliant journalists. They do fantastic stuff.
They do.
Great jobs. Apparently, it now turns out the Prime Minister's official spokesman, who goes by...
Is this Dmitry Medvedev?
No, Medvedev is the former Russian president, and he's current Deputy Security
He said
Council
the Times
chair.
were legitimate...
He said the journalists at the Times
were legitimate military targets.
Right, yeah. So, you know, we're sitting here in a building which is apparently now seen by Russia as a military target. So some of these nutters that ring in and go, oh, you know, it's all the warmongers from the West, you know, it's Putin's actually doing the right thing, he's all right. Putin is not all right. He is a crazy, nutty warmonger.
But that's
It's really interesting. I had a guy on. I put a phone down on a guy the other day because I said, go and live there. Listen to this, whatever your name was. Dmitry Medvedev, the former Russian president, current Deputy Security Council, said journalists at the Times, our sister newspaper, were legitimate military targets and should be very careful as anything goes in London. Is that not a declaration?
So I'm going to be very careful of anyone with an umbrella on the way out here, I think.
Absolutely right. But, you know, the problem is that, you know, the Russians we've known for a very long time have got tentacles that reach into all parts of the world, and they do and have issued, you know, death threats to people, and they've carried them out as well.
Salisbury.
So, Salisbury, you might remember there was a guy who lived down near Cobham in Chelsea, who was a Russian sort of expat, who was living in Abramovich from Chelsea, was seen as a kind of an enemy of Putin.
And what about the guy?
And he was suddenly found dead, and they went, we think he killed himself. He really didn't.
Is this the guy in the bath?
Yes.
It's a mile from where I lived. They found him dead.
Right.
Legitimate threat, do you think?
I think it is a legitimate threat. I think you have to take anything seriously that's issued by Dmitry Medvedev, who's part of the Russian, you know, nation.
The Times journalists are legitimate military targets and should be very careful as anything goes in London. I don't think I've ever heard anything so astonishing in my life.
He's calling on Russian patriots, you
Yeah.
know, to make them a legitimate target for the Russian state. He says there's a whole legion of them. There's not even enough space to list them all.
It's extraordinary.
Isn't that incredible?
Well, look, I think we should send a little message to our Russian friends that, you know...
Oh, God, he's going to get brave. He comes on once a week.
Seriously, when it comes to the way that you might do things in Russia in terms of, you know, controlling the press and not allowing journalists to speak their minds and have an opinion, I'm afraid here it's rather different, particularly here, and we're going to continue to say what we say, believe what we believe, and stick our fingers on it.
But you know the problem with this ridiculous bunch of morons we call our government? One wonders how strong they'd be in the face of something like this. This is interesting. Stu's in Hales Owen. Have you been to Hales Owen?
I have.
You need metal road, mate.
Yeah. I have.
There used to be a joke about it, but it'll go down like a lead balloon.
I mean, to be fair, Foreign Secretary David Lammy has actually come out with a statement. He said, our newspapers represent the best of British values, freedom, democracy and independent thinking. I stand with the Times. So, you know, unusually for David Lammy, he's actually said the right thing.
Is he already seeing the exit from the Foreign Office in a column in the Times?
He's also called this a gangster threat that smacks of desperation. which it does. But you've got to take it seriously.
Very, very
for
interesting.
one time only. Well done, David Lammy.
Yeah.
Stu in Hale's
Thank
Own,
you.
I know it's terrible, everything that the Labour morons have done so far, but the big story is yet to come. I'm in business, and they are decimating all sectors of the businesses, and I just don't think people are grasping how much of an effect it's going to have to jobs and the cost of living in the next few months, never mind the next 4 years. Very quickly, you on that, Russ, because Stu in Hale's Own, spot on, isn't he?
I'm afraid that the fingerprints of a Labour government always are left on such things as higher unemployment, higher inflation, higher interest rates. 5 months into this hapless bunch, we are already seeing it. GDP growth down, unemployment starting to rise, inflation rose today. It really is a concern. They are going to drive us into an economic abyss, I'm afraid.
Yeah, well, Rachel Reeves is now being blamed, literally, for driving the economy off a cliff.
Yeah.
But there is one growth area, though, and that is the public sector. You were talking earlier about
yes.
the Avanti strikes that are coming up. You know, they're going to strike every Sunday from January to May. What the hell are they thinking, right? But meanwhile, over in the world of the civil service...
I love he's doing that voice, I love it.
The head count has gone up since Labour got into power. There's now 515,000 pen pushers working in Whitehall.
515?
515.
Half a million people doing what?
Working in the Department of Defence, working in the Home Office, working in the Foreign Office. It's gone up 2,000 since Labour have been in power.
In just 5 months. And the bill was already £16 billion.
I mean, unbelievable. The Ministry of Justice added 595 staff to its ranks. Department for Work and Pensions, 355. Treasury brought in 315. And these are the people running the economy, by the way. And then they brought in 315 deaf and dumb idiots today.
But you know what? You know what Rachel Reeves thinks?
Probably not.
Rachel Reeves thinks that by bloating the public sector, that is her definition of economic growth.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
what she thinks.
this is exactly what they think. They think that by creating public investment, as they call it, that somehow that stimulates.
I
the
remember
it
1979. There'd be 7 people stood on the side of a road in Viz jackets, of which 2 people could have done the job, and that was the idea of full employment. This is what we're dealing with. Firstly, Carolina in Bath. Hello, Jeremy, Russell and Mike. Message to Head Honcho at Talk. You guys are keeping us sane. I'm a regular viewer, texter, love the presenters, love the shows, no longer watch anything else. You are keeping me sane. Ready for this?
Go on.
This is from Reg Gardner. Listen to that comment from the Russians. To me, that sounded like a declaration of war. This is from Michelle. We're the ones escalating the war, Jez. If they feel their man was targeted, we're directly involved already.
They feel their man was targeted.
Yes.
Well, let's put it this way. General Kirillov, who was in charge of Russia's nuclear, biological and chemical defence troops, more than likely was killed by bomb by the Russians, I would have said.
Well, they're good at that.
Yeah.
They're good at bombing their own, right?
Although maybe not, because he didn't fall out of a window.
I don't think he was bombed by the Times, let's put it that way.
No.
You know.
And to say, I mean, I repeat what Mike, I mean, that's an extraordinary story that you brought in. To say, and I quote, journalists at the Times are legitimate military targets should be careful as anything goes in London.
Yeah.
Where does that leave us all? What do you make of it, my team? 0344 499 1000, text to 87222. Start your message with the word talks. The birthday of Ryan Lanky Thrussell. I thought that was a rash, Thrussell, didn't it?
Yeah, I think I've had that.
Where are you on? What have you? Yes. I lent you that cream.
Yeah.
Waspy. I mean, another
women.
extraordinary mistake.
Incredible mistake. You know, there are people who think that the Waspy women shouldn't be given this compensation, and that's one way of looking at it. But the reason why the Labour Party are getting so much vitriol about this is because not to a single man and woman of them, all of them are pictured with people with their arms around them, holding up placards saying, we stand with the Waspy women. Keir Starmer promising them that he was going to change it. Angela Rayner saying that, you know, any government worth its salt would fix this problem and give them the money. And now they're going, oh, you know what? We're not going to do it. It's disgusting.
And you think about you think about him going and visiting the farmers directly himself before the election and saying this isn't going to happen. We support you. This is my question, Mikey, and both of you really. How do they imagine that is not going to look? That doesn't go away, does it?
No,
forever?
Of course not, because this is the problem. They're now... I was talking to Dan Hodges about this, who normally is a defender of the Labour government.
Yeah.
Today he couldn't defend them. He said this is the worst thing single-handedly that they've ever done. Worse than the pensions.
Really worse than the pensions?
And the bar was pretty high.
Yeah,
right?
and the bar was pretty high. And he said, you know, this will be remembered. Even one of their own backbenchers has said this is like Grenfell, it's like Hillsborough, it's like Orgreave. This is one of the biggest miscarriages of justice that this country has seen.
Do we think in terms of lack of conscience, genuinely, that Keir Starmer's got something wrong with him?
I think he has.
He's got no conscience, he's got no empathy.
I
he's got no
don't know. I can't work
it out. Is he a
out.
sociopath? Is he worse than a sociopath?
Yeah, I think he might be, because he doesn't get it either. He stands around.
He doesn't care.
And, you know, when he was being quizzed by Harry Cole yesterday on the Never Mind the Ballot special, we played some of the clips today, he doesn't really understand that people are calling him names because they don't like him. He's going, I've been called worse names than that.
And he's out the country today when he has another appalling announcement because he's in Estonia because I spoke to Harry this morning. Fact, right? I don't understand. This is my point. I guess if he's a power-mad, dictatorial man, but he's not. He seems to not understand that if you genuinely hack off really specifically important parts of this country, pensioners, the armed forces, Brexiteers, farmers, waspy women, they're not coming back.
No.
You can't give them a tax decrease in 5 years and they'll forget. They won't.
I do think he is a bit power mad. The fact that you spent more time abroad. I mean, you've seen those memes on X and Facebook now, you know, Keir Starmer to visit Britain.
Yes,
I mean,
exactly
seriously, they're going
Maybe he goes abroad because he knows he's unpopular. I mean, I watched that disastrous interview on ITV with Andy Peters, who I like very much, but it wasn't right. And he said,
wrong guy.
Yeah, absolutely. But he's a good man. But he said to him, you know, you're not very. And he went, I've decided to take the important, hard decisions first, and that is what I'm doing. I mean, he
actually said, when he said to Harry Cole, you know, I had to make these decisions because we needed to make people better off. Well, we're not better off, OK? We're worse off. So he hasn't done that. And then he said, and also we had to do this to reduce the waiting times at the NHS. Well, he hasn't done that either.
Oh, because we've got a £22 million black hole.
He's either deluded because he thinks he's doing something that's not happening, or he's just an out-and-out liar.
Is he out of his depth, then?
Yeah,
he's out of his depth because what he's doing is playing out his sixth form political ideology.
Yeah, he is a liar.
Look, he absolutely is a liar. But he's playing out this ideology that he's always wanted to play out as a leader of a country, and he's got no idea of the implications and the consequences. He's got no idea how.
Does he care? Does he care?
No, I think he cares about his ideology.
Does he care about his legacy?
And I think he cares about his position on the world stage, which is why he's out there trying to meet as many of these people as he possibly can. Look, the man's deluded, and definitely, despite all of the rhetoric about country first, party second, that's absolute
That's all cobblers, isn't it?
That's absolute cobblers. Right. This man is putting himself, his party, and he's not going to have a legacy, Jeremy, is it? Let's be honest. All of that first, country second, and actually vast swathes of the country second.
Steve says, Reeves, the jumped-up bank clerk with the dodgy CV, the waspy payment won't be a proper use of taxpayers' money, whereas overpaying flipping train drivers for a 4-day week is. And that's the reality,
isn't
right?
Isn't it funny? It's £10 billion they say they can't afford to pay, the taxpayers shouldn't be forced to wear, right? What else costs £10 billion this year?
Foreign aid.
No, forget about that. How about the migrants in the hotels? That's another £10 billion.
Yep.
You know, that's not apparently
11 billion on climate aid, 8 billion, on foreign aid,
I can't have
22 billion on carbon capture.
People are looking around as we speak in their neighbourhoods, walking down the street. They see how Britain has been changing. They see more and more people arriving from foreign countries. They see people living in relative luxury compared to their parents who can't afford to put the heating on.
Private GPs to the
They're seeing
hostel.
private GPs. They're seeing these characters wandering out of hotels, smoking, hanging about, bothering women, and they go, something's wrong here. What the hell is going on?
I'm just going to sound awful. I went back to Windsor the other day, took Henry to see some friends, right? I'm driving through Datchet. Datchet is, like, renowned for being in between Windsor Castle and, you know, I mean, their main hotel has got 375 migrants. You could see them walking up and down the streets, and nobody was on the streets. And you think to yourself, and I'm only fortified by this station and the things that we do here because you couldn't have mentioned the word immigration 10 years ago. You'd have been labelled a racist. What politicians need to understand is there are millions and millions of people who have always lived their lives correctly, who are walking around, as you say, going, no. I'm not extreme right. Yeah. I'm not a homophobic, misogynistic, racist, whatever the hell they always say. Actually, just a person who's lived here, paid my taxes, and I'm hacked off.
I think,
with
guys, we've also got to accept that this government and the previous one, of course, who should hang their heads in shame.
Absolutely, for allowing this to happen.
But they no longer is this about just pure incompetence. This is strategic. They are doing this on purpose. A, because they genuinely believe that immigration of all kinds increases the wealth of the country. Let me tell you, it doesn't.
It doesn't.
Particularly when you bring the wrong people in. And they also, mark my words, a bit like Kamala Harris was doing in the United States, they'll give illegal immigrants the vote so that Labour stays in power forever.
The birthday boys said, "Can we go to a break?" Everybody sounds the same to me. He's going out tonight with his wife.
Is he? That's nice.
Yeah, I went out with her last night. Anyway, happy birthday, Ryan. Michael Graham, we bow down to the Temple of Immigrants. I'll be ready to pick you up tomorrow at 5. Russell Quirk, the boy done good. Great to be with you. 20 minutes to 5 o'clock. This is Talk Drive. I'll be back in 3, but I'm off for a wee.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile. The home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 18 minutes to 5. That's what happens when I come back from a break. My next guest talking to me, Ryan's talking to me, and Amy's let out a big burp. It's all going on. Welcome to Talk Drive. Talk, the home of free speech and common sense. This is JK on Drive. JK woke up this morning, right, and his voice was going. This is my third show of the day, and we're getting there. Mike Neville, former Met Police detective. How are you, son?
I'm very well. I'm pleased to be here in the studio.
Good to have you on. I'm still recoiling from that story in Russia. People are just texting and ringing in. The government has criticised Moscow's desperate rhetoric after a senior ally of Vladimir Putin threatened the Times newspaper over its coverage of the assassination of a Russian general. They described the Times and its journalists as legitimate military targets and said the journalists should be careful as anything goes in London, Mike.
It's totally shocking, isn't it? I mean, the Russians as well, they're almost like James Bond villains, aren't they? They don't just kill people, they make them sort of suffer, as we say all the time. And so I think it should be a case of the government. They should be expelling people from the embassy. Those sort of threats are completely...
I mean, those are real threats. You're saying to our sister newspaper, you're saying to one of the finest newspapers in this land, the Times, you better look over your shoulder.
No,
we don't live in a bloody police state.
Well, no, this is the country brought Novichok here to assassinate somebody. So that is, we know they can do these things, so that's why the government have got to take it seriously.
Mike, got you in for two stories. Donna Jones, Hampshire's Police and Crime Commissioner. Do we love her?
Yeah, she's not bad, actually. She comes up with some good stuff occasionally.
She says the recording of non-crime hate incidents should be scrapped in their current form. A lock, stock and barrel review. The former chairman of the Association of Police and Crime Commissioners said police should not be responding to any incident that's not a crime. It's as simple as that, she said. Her comments followed the controversy over how officers police hate speech following an abortive investigation into the Telegraph journalist, of course, Alison Pearson, for apparently a tweet she wrote a year ago. And by the way, while we're at it, in London, you know, Sadiq Khan, we've got 18,000 knife crimes. Women get burgled, old ladies, they're not seen. Burglar, I mean, that's disgusting,
Well, it is
man.
disgusting. So you would expect, if the police had dealt with every robbery, every murder, every rape, every shoplifting, and they had a lot of time on their hands, then they could deal with, like, people being upset and whatever else. But they obviously haven't, because about 5% of crimes actually results in somebody being charged. The trouble with these non-crime hate incidents, people are locked into them because they go back to the dreadful murder of Stephen Lawrence. And there was, in my view, an overreaction there in the sense that what they said is anything. What came in after that is that if somebody perceived something to be racist or whatever, then it was to be recorded. And the problem is, in Britain, we've always dealt with evidence. You have to produce facts. Why are you saying this is racist? What facts? But the moment it becomes like a feeling, well, I perceived it to be, there's no challenge. How do you challenge that? You can't say, well, I
can't understand at nearly 60 that we're beginning to live in a country, and I find any racism abhorrent, and I'm going to say that. But I also cannot and will not accept that, you know, Hugh Edwards and his accomplice Jack Davis can walk free on a suspended sentence having watched the most graphic, disgusting images of 6- and 7-year-old kids and babies. I don't even want to go there.
I've been there.
A woman can write something that's misjudged and wrong but should be able to apologise. She's put in jail. And I don't understand. And by... non-crime hate incidents, in my mind, just give oxygen to people who've got nothing better to do, and it makes the police, as you said, miss out on the real crime.
I think the other thing is what you've got to imagine, Jeremy, is that the left like to control people.
Yep.
And those non-crime hate incidents make people afraid. So they're frightened to talk about things like immigration. So what you have now is ordinary people whispering in corners, and that's a really bad state of affairs. And what they've done, these people, if you control what people say, you control what people think. And these non-crime hate incidents are very good to control the population.
Why would senior police officers, Mike, in your opinion, accept this as a way forward for the police to behave?
Because the vast majority of the senior police officers who exist today, most of them are ex-university graduates. There's very few ex-soldiers.
Never been on the beat.
And they're focused on diversity and whatever else. They're not focused on catching criminals.
No.
They're not. So if you say to every chief constable, I want you to put a list on your door of every robber and burglar you have personally arrested, there'd be a lot of embarrassed faces because of the people with no names on the list. They've focused their life on a particular political agenda.
But if we carry on like that, what's going to happen to policing? The reason that many people voted reform in the last election was not as many people said, oh, Nigel Farage's talking far right. No, he's not. He's talking about what we used to believe were traditional Tory values, one of which was not a fear of crime, criminals fearing the police and the consequences of their crime, right?
And what people used to do, people used to report a burglary because they thought the police will come here, they'll catch the burglar, I'll get my television back. The only reason people report burglaries these days is so they get a crime number and can report it. So when the police say, oh, the crime has gone down, the real reason is because poor people who don't have insurance don't report burglars anymore because there's no point in doing it. And so what we're left with now is the population being criminals just can do what they want. They can go into shops and steal. If you saw some latest crime figures, the number of robberies in shops have gone up by 80%.
Yeah.
The reason for that is because shoplifters feel entitled to steal. And when somebody stops them, it turns into a big fight and it becomes a robbery. And so shop staff and everybody else is put at risk because...
We had a guy on yesterday, mate, who'd made 50
yes, I saw that, yeah.
Arrests, had to wait.
Citizens arrests.
And he said that the reason he does it, apart from he's annoyed and he's got 3 big sons who help him out, it's the only way to get the police there, because they'll suddenly turn up and say, thanks for doing the job for us, and bung them in the back of a car.
Yesterday...
How bad does that sound?
Well, I was at a restaurant. I went with a friend to a Kurdish restaurant yesterday, and outside was a man on drugs. He'd been in the restaurant abusing everybody. He was outside, his backside hanging out. The man was on the phone saying to the police, you must come, this man's been in my restaurant abusing everybody. He's now laid flat on the pavement. We had to convince the police to turn up and deal with that. You know, and this man's just trying to earn a living. The people in the restaurant just trying to eat the food.
Outrageous.
It is outrageous.
Very quickly, your response to this: a driver who was filmed inhaling laughing gas behind the wheel before a high-speed crash at 100 miles an hour has been jailed for killing 3 teenage friends. Thomas Johnson was travelling with speeds of 100 miles an hour before his car hit a tree in Oxfordshire, killing passengers. They were 18 and 17, jailed for 9 years and 4 months. How does he only go to jail for 9 years and 4 months?
It's shocking. And
killed 3 people. He should go to jail for life.
What are we going to do about these young men who do... It's always young men doing daft things. We've got to control this. If you're a certain age, I don't think you should be able to have any passengers, because what they're trying to do is be flash with their friends. And it ends up in... It's a tragedy for him and his family, and moreover, it's an absolute terrible tragedy for the
I'm quite strict on this with my kids. I think that, you know, you do a half-an-hour driving test and you can down the motorway at 70 miles an hour. Dangerous.
It's always young lads.
Amen. It's always a pleasure. Our children go to the same school. Mike Neville, thank you very much indeed. 10 to 5, we're live across the UK. Your calls are coming next. 0344 499 1000. This is Talk Drive.
let's be clear. Elon Musk loves the United Kingdom, the home of English-speaking nations. He's got serious business interests here, whether it's X, whether it's Tesla, whether it's Starlink, and he wants the United Kingdom to do well. He wants our economy to grow, and he recognises that Labour's a catastrophe and that Britain needs reform in every sense, and that's why he's been speaking to Nigel, met our new Treasurer, Nick Candy, and, you know, he's put out there on X that, you know, we've got to turn this country around. We've got to reform our country.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Drive JK till 7. The Voice is doing its best. Hello to Tony from North Somerset. That's where my parents are from. Well, were, because they're dead. Absolutely fantastic trio to listen to this afternoon. Jezzeros and Mike, let's get this government gone. They're frauds. Afternoon, Mick. Starmer is a liar and thinks more of himself than the country. He will do nothing to protect journalists from Putin's gangsters. He does not have the guts at all. I don't know if this is Chris. I feel the actual crime rate is completely misinterpreted, Jez. We live in a country where you need evidence to prosecute. However, thousands of people a year are convicted purely on a victim statement with no evidence. The whole system needs reforming. I think you're right. To the phone lines, Wednesday afternoon, drive time on Talk. Let's go to James in Watford. Oh, what a crap football team. James, good afternoon. How are you?
Oh, hello, I'm fine, thanks.
Are you a Watford fan? James, are you a Watford fan?
I've obviously been through life a bit, but never been through life like we're getting now. And I very much value your input on television and on YouTube because you talk good sense, and I'm very, very pleased about that. Obviously, I was born in Datchet after the war, and the Hitler bombers used to dump their bombs over there when they missed London, so I've had a bit of a rough start. But that was the times when we had governments that talked sense, governments that actually did something about things. But now I'm just frightened to death of what's going to happen, because as a pensioner, I've only got my pension. I've got nothing much other than a small private pension, and they seem to be hitting pensioners all the time, and it's very worrying. And to get pension credit, it's like walking over glass. So I don't know if you've got any comments about that.
You were a war baby, you're 85. You are, listen, everybody knows I'm a bit soft on two things. One is the elderly and one is children. My parents are no longer with us, and when I listen to somebody like you and I know that all you've been through and all you've done for this country, I cannot put into words how abhorrent I feel this government is. We seemingly favour giving money to people in other countries to build projects, and yet you are genuinely concerned about what will happen this winter. I'll tell you one thing you will get here. You get honesty and you'll get fight, because I don't believe that this government cares about enough people. I understand it's difficult. I understand financially we're in a difficult position, but it's about prioritising. And I would far rather prioritise pensioners, children, than illegal migrants, criminals, and everybody else who seems to get a leg up in this society. Have you ever known a government this bad, James?
Well, there's a lot of money goes abroad and it doesn't go to us.
Yeah. Absolutely. Am I allowed to be rude? Who did you vote for in the last election?
Sorry?
Who did you vote for in the last election?
I can't hear what you're saying, sir.
Who did you vote for in the last election, James?
Reform, who else?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? So a lot of people, your age, my age, would say that reform speaks the language that for years the Tory party voted for. Let me tell you one thing. We will be with you on Talk every single day. You are always welcome to call. We appreciate your call, but you've got to keep believing, because, James, this ain't going on forever. There's a lot of people, millions of people, who understand, appreciate and respect the position many pensioners are in. Thank you so much for your call. Let's go to Kent. Mark, you're on Talk Drive. 2 minutes. What you got?
Hello, good evening. Yes, I just wanted to phone up about the lady you had on about 25 past the hour about the WASPy thing, is she said that the economy in the country has lost about £65 billion from the voluntary sector, which were women mostly, before they when they retired. I think she's underestimated it. I think it's way past that. Because just my experiences in school governorship and things like that, it was always women or ladies who have retired at 60 or any other charities like that. My sister worked for Bernardo's up until a little while ago, but she had to actually leave the voluntary sector to go back to work because she needed to earn more money because of the cost of living. And the way that, not politically, but the way that this section of women particularly have been treated, I just found appalling.
Well, you say not politically, but in 2022, Starmer signed a pledge for these, hear me out, for these women to be compensated, which he reinforced last year, saying that they'd faced a huge misjustice. And many people are not surprised because this is another example of, I'll promise the earth to anybody to get elected and then I'll drop them in it. My question to you, and I haven't got a lot of time, is, this is a man who keeps attacking the sorts of bodies of people that I believe are sort of sacrosanct, that are sort of really important to our future and should be respected. You know, all the past, pensioners, farmers, Brexiteers, WASPy women. He doesn't seem to give a toss about anybody. You just heard that pensioner who's terrified. He's worked all his life. He's 85. He should be enjoying his retirement. No, we'll send money across the water to wherever, but we won't look after our own, Mark. I'm telling you now, whether people think this is over the top, this will not continue because people will fight back against this. They have to. It's not right.
The answer to what the government is doing now, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I think they've done a lot of algorithms and AI, and it's come out that they can attack certain sections of the society who will never vote for them, or
I don't believe. I'm not into conspiracy theories. I don't believe they're that intelligent. I think they're incompetent. I think they got in by default because, and I lay this firmly at the Tories' door, the Tories had lost the ear of the British public and were appalling. And as a result of that, this lot, just shambles. And but actually, Mikey said something to me off air earlier. Vindictive shambles. That's what worries people like James the pensioner, that they've got a nasty agenda. And that is the thing that should worry people. Listen, Mark, great to have you on. Please spread the word. Talk is on 24 hours a day. Don't forget, we're here until 7 o'clock tonight. I'm having a bet on Ryan's birthday. By the way, Ryan's going out tonight. He's just told us that his wife, if you were listening a couple of weeks ago, suddenly a box arrived in the lounge. He wasn't allowed to touch his wife's box. She opened her box today on his birthday and there was a beautiful coffee maker. And then he added the really sad postscript that the cat bought him a new coffee mug. Bliss. Tonight he's going out with his wife. I went out with her last night. Happy 32nd birthday, Ryan. He hasn't had a voice note from any of you miserable buggers yet. What's the matter with you? 0344 419 1000. If you send us a WhatsApp voice note, you can ring that number to get on. And don't forget, of course, throughout the show tonight and ever, you can text the show 87222. Start your message with the word talk. It's almost 5 and the news on Talk is next.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile. The home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Hour 2 of Wednesday's Drive Time. This is JK. The voice is getting croakier by the minute, but the holiday is in sight. But listen, thank you so much indeed for tuning in. As ever, your show, 0344 499 1000, text to 87222. So much to talk about. We will do it in a sec with the legend that is Ben Habib. Good afternoon, Graham Pack. He packs a punch, rubbish. The government can find 50 million quid for Syria, Jez, which is run by a proscribed terrorist organisation, but not a bean for waspy women. Let's just remind ourselves about these women who were promised they could retire at 60. In 2022, dreary Starmer signed a pledge for these women to be compensated fairly, which he reinforced last year in the election campaign, saying it was a huge injustice and his government would support them. Another bare-faced lie. Good afternoon to Tracy. Love the show. What about getting a petition and giving it to the King, telling him to take a look at what's going on in this country due to Starmer and co? Trace, I don't disagree. It's a constitutional monarchy, though. You've got 4.5 more years of this crap. There's nothing you could do about it. David Pickford, who's very good at packing. That was just a ridiculously crap joke. I don't know why I did it. Afternoon, Jez. My wife was 6 years off receiving her pension at 60 when she got bounced out 3 years. By the time she reached 60, she'd been bounced out another 5 years. You can't plan to replace 5 years' pension when you're only receiving 6 years' notice. Disgusting. I've never felt so disillusioned about the direction of travel of this country in my life. These clowns need to go. They are unfit for office. Good afternoon, Steve in Cambridge. And I think sums up what everybody felt. James was really sweet and very, very scared. 85 years of age, he should be having the best time of his life, not phoning radio stations saying how scared he is. So sad. Something must be done for the old hero. Smudgy's in Swindon. Happy birthday, Ryan. Hope you have a great evening out with your wife. Ignore JK. All of his listeners do. That's a bit harsh. Jez, thanks for sharing Freezing this Christmas. I've just downloaded it. What a great Christmas it would be if this made it to Christmas #1. Please keep advertising it. I'm going to do two things. I'm going to say a very good afternoon to the legend that is Ben Habib, former MEP and Brexiteer. Ben, how are you?
Good afternoon.
Before we go any further, I'm on the campaign trail. I want this song, created by Sir Starmer and the Granny Harmers, to not only go to #1 for many reasons. One, because he's a liar, but also I want to see if the BBC have the balls to play it. Are you ready, Amy? This is for Ben Habib and anybody else. Download this song. Have a listen.
It'll be freezing this Christmas while our money goes abroad. It'll be freezing this Christmas. Rachel Reeves is a fraud. It'll be cold, so cold, without fuel at home this Christmas.
What does it say, though, Ben, on a serious note? What the hell does it say? I don't know if you were listening to the show. We just had James, 85, a war baby, paid his taxes, served in the armed forces, done everything, widowed now, on his own, basic state pension, absolutely terrified of what this government might do to him next.
I don't think we've ever had a Christmas song that has been political before.
No.
I mean, it's a testimony to the state of the country, isn't it? And it is awful. I mean, as you said, £50 million ostensibly to Syria. Actually, I doubt Syrians will get the money. It'll go into the back pockets of the terrorists who now control the country. £35 million, by the way, to Ukraine, I think, was announced yesterday, in addition to the billions that we've spent arming them, but £35 million to keep their people warm during what Starmer described as, you know, what was going to be a harsh winter. And here he is at home, having spent all these billions abroad, as the song rightly points out, cutting back benefits for the British people, cutting the winter fuel allowance, cutting his pledge on the waspy women, and a whole else besides. You know, anyone who's been working hard, they've had their taxes go up. We've seen employment, new jobs and hiring go through the floor in the last couple of months as a result of the budget. We've seen the price of electricity go up again this winter. It's just a disaster. It's just one thing after another. So it's not surprising, I suppose, that the Christmas #1 is now going to be a political song. First time ever in my life.
I know, and you're right. But Ben, here's the thing that I don't understand. You will put this much better than me. Clive in Solihull says, great show, JK. Starmer is obviously a sociopath, and the rest of them are just useless, unqualified sheep. If he's not careful, he might cause a general strike like we had in 26. Now there's an idea. They need to go before they destroy what's left of our country, vote reform. But here's the thing. That's not going to happen. It's a constitutional monarchy. Parliament's been set. That's fine. Do you, I really respect your opinion on this, do you believe that this man is thick, deaf, stupid, or is doing something because he knows something we don't? Because I don't think in my lifetime that I've ever known a politician set about either systematically or because he's no idea what he's doing in upsetting what I described earlier as some of the very bedrock of our society. 10 million pensioners, 3.5 million waspy women, 2 million farmers, 18 million Brexiteers. It's almost like this man is either oblivious to what he's doing or there's more to this. What is your take, Ben, on this man, genuinely?
I think he's delivering precisely what he wishes to deliver, which was the rewarding initially of the unions for the donations that they got during the general election. That was a transaction that was done, in my mind. They donated. He gave them the salary rises that they wanted. And then he's gone after Tory voters. Of course, the elderly are principally Tory voters, as are the waspy women. He's given effect to his ideological aims by putting Ed Miliband in charge of our energy and expanding our drive towards net zero by halving our emissions by 2030, putting back in place the things that even Sunak had taken the foot off the pedal on, the clean heat market mechanism, for example. Now, people are going to be penalised if wholesalers and producers of gas boilers are going to be penalised if they're not selling an increasing proportion of heat exchangers. The same goes for the production and selling of EV cars. I mean, what he's doing is driving his agenda. And amongst all of that, he is taking us much closer to the European Union. He's going to be giving up our control of sanitary and phytosanitary regulations. He's going to adopt EU regulations for it, which means that the entire United Kingdom is going to be subject to the European Court of Justice in matters of SPS. He's going to hand over some of our fishing, more of our fishing. We've already handed over quite a lot. He's going to be, I'm sure, as night follows day, he will be taking on some form of freedom of movement with the youth of Europe. And the other thing that he's doing, and he's doing it very cleverly behind the scenes and hasn't really made the public, hasn't got into the public psyche yet, is joining the European Defence Union, which is the amalgamation of our armed forces. He has done all of this, the amalgamation of our armed forces with European ones, under the charge of Brussels, I should just complete. Which is, in my view, that is absolutely abhorrent that we would be entering into that kind of arrangement with the European Union. And he's done all of this in 6 months. So if you're an ideological nutcase like he is, actually, he's been an incredibly successful prime minister for his agenda. But he's been incredibly damaging for the UK.
That's my point. Incredibly damaging. And he cannot believe, can he, that people will swallow this and re-elect him. It can't happen. It cannot happen. I don't believe that pensioners, waspy women, Brexiteers, small business owners, whatever, will forget what he's done.
No, and I think the only chance, as you rightly say, we've got him for 4.5 years, but there is a chance that the last budget, which, by the way, nailed private enterprise, nailed, also, I didn't touch on it, nailed the principle of property rights. The expansion of inheritance tax is basically an attack on the principle of ownership of property, because what you paid money, you pay tax on the money you've earned during your life, you bought something, and then they target that. So, we all like to buy freehold property better than leasehold because we think we're buying it forever. You're not, because the state's going to come after you later, and he's expanded that too. And the increase in employers' national insurance was targeted on the private sector. The public sector were not subject to it. He's gone after damaging the private sector. And I think Rachel Reeves has overplayed her hand. And we're seeing a remarkable turn down in the economy already.
Yeah, we are. Inflation rising again today, absolutely.
Inflation rising. Sterling is down. inflation is going up, and we've had 2 months of contraction in our economy, in GDP. And if you get into a vicious cycle, which I think we're at risk of doing, where your economy is shrinking, the pound therefore goes down because people don't want to invest in the United Kingdom, interest rates go up then to avoid imported inflation, the government can't raise enough debt to finance its needs because it's not getting the tax take that it thought it was going to get because business isn't producing the cash that it forecasted it would produce. You end up in a sovereign debt crisis for the United Kingdom. And I think that's on the cards, by the way. It sounds, like I'm scaremongering, but I think it is on the cards that you have stagflation, a collapsing pound, high interest rates, and an inability to finance government.
I mean, you talk about how he's instigated his ideology in a short space of time. Many people would say that what he's done in a short space of time is alienate almost everybody and show himself to be utterly incompetent. I'd love your response, by the way, to this story, Ben. I mean, we only got this here at News about half an hour ago. The government has rightly criticised just now Moscow's desperate rhetoric. Have you heard this story? After a senior ally of Vladimir Putin threatened the Times newspaper over its coverage of the assassination of a Russian general. One of its spokesmen said, and I quote, "Journalists at the Times were legitimate military targets and should be very careful in future as anything goes in London." Its comments followed a Times editorial in which the newspaper described the assassination of Lieutenant General Igor Kirillov as a legitimate act of defence by Ukraine. They're threatening Times journalists, man. They're threatening Times journalists. I mean, what does that mean? Is that a declaration of war? It's a fact.
It's pretty close. I mean, that's a remarkable attack on a specific British media outlet. Again, that seems new to me. I haven't heard anything like that before. But of course, what we've done in Ukraine is allow Ukraine to fire Storm Shadow missiles. So the narrative I'm sure that Putin is giving his people is that the Brits have been firing missiles into Russia. They are now our enemy. And it's a narrative which will, I'm sure, have some traction with the Russian people. Sorry.
No,
well,
go,
I was going to say, and in the face of all of this, we are, on the day that Storm Shadow missiles hit Russia, we announced £500 million cuts in our armed forces. And as I say, we're about to hand over control, I think, under Starmer to the European Union. What we should be doing, if we really care about the free world and about our own freedom and our security, is actually pumping money into our military right now.
I couldn't agree more. Do you, I mean, as we head into the Christmas break and the New Year, and I want to talk to you about reform in just a tick, a lot of people, let's be perfectly honest, have contacted this station over the last few months and sort of almost in shock at what's going on. And they keep saying, it's not going to happen. You're going to get 4.5 more years of this. This is a cynical socialist. This is the reality of what happened. Do you fear for not fear for our country, but the way we look on the world stage, the way our people feel about politicians in general, it seems to me, without exaggerating it, that a lot of what I've always known to be about the United Kingdom is falling about my ears. I use an example today. The man that supplied the images to Hugh Edwards, the paedophile, is a paedophile, and he escapes jail, and yet we send a woman to jail for writing nasty words. I don't understand where we've got to. I don't.
I think the country is in a dire straits. I'm completely with you, and I've often said I think we're facing an existential threat, constitutionally, democratically, culturally, economically. The things that successive governments have done have really threatened the United Kingdom. And there's no better example of it than taking down our borders. Borders came about over hundreds and thousands of years for the protection of the British people. And in the last 25 years, they've been set aside. And we haven't got a government that understands, as generations after generations understood, that you have to defend your borders.
Yes, you do.
It's not a conceptual thing. It's not a legal nicety. It doesn't rest on complying with international conventions. Border control is a physical thing that a country needs to do at its borders. And we're not alone. The United States is suffering it. Hopefully Trump will set a new direction of travel for the US, but the United States can't control its borders at the moment. And Europe has actually willfully taken down its borders with the construction of the Schengen zone. And when you take down your borders, you've given up the nation state. No borders, no country, no nation state. The tribe, the British tribe, as it were, if I can call it that, it's an emotive term, but I use it deliberately. The British tribe is under threat.
Yeah.
And our government is not moving to protect us. It's failing in its fundamental duty to the British people.
I mean, I've always thought what you've just said is absolutely spot on, but I've always thought there will be at some point a reaction. Now, I'm going to read this from Tom Stewart in Morpeth, but don't judge me, Ben Habib. Happy birthday, Ryan. I hope you have a wonderful day. Thanks for keeping an eye on Jezza. He needs it. Can you please beg one of the greatest men to speak on your station to make up with reform? We need this man at the forefront of getting our country back. Tom Stewart in Morpeth. I only read that because, of course, we've been hearing over the last 2 days, Nick Candy, the billionaire donor who's the new treasurer of reform, flew to Mar-a-Lago, Donald Trump's place, with Nigel Farage, and they were photographs of the richest man in the world, Elon Musk, and there are rumours that he might be ready to bankroll to the tune of £78 million, $100 million, Reform UK, which many people will say, Ben, would change the face of British politics. I ask you this because we've spoken many times, and I would do nothing but respect you, that for you there were certain issues, that it was a one-person party, it was a business. Do you believe that Reform are starting to make, excuse the pun, the reforms that they need? Second question, do you see any way, however popular, be it whatever it is, of the two-party system being broken or changed in this country? Because I was at something last night and every single person said to me the following: we need a Trump moment in this country. We need somebody who doesn't care about criticism, who is a convicted politician, not convicted of a crime, a conviction politician, who believes and will not listen to the noise and will get it done. I genuinely... I know there's lots of questions. What about you and Reform? Talk to me.
So, I mean, just coming back to the two-party system, I think it is broken.
Yeah.
One of the great strengths of the Conservative Party had been that it had literally millions of members. And through its membership, it was therefore very closely in touch with what the nation was thinking. And Labour, similarly, actually originally, and for a long time afterwards, represent the working class. It got its mandate. It may have been a mandate that many people didn't agree with, and it may have been economically damaging at times. But they had a direct route into the working class of this country, and Labour was called Labour because they represented them. Labour's moved away from its position into some kind of liberal globalist party that believes in net zero before the prosperity of the working class. And the Tories have lost touch, I think, with their base because their membership, as we now know, is down from millions in the 1950s to 130,000.
Yep.
And Reform is licking at its heels. And so I think the two-party system is very much threatened, absolutely, and rightly threatened because they haven't been doing the right thing for the country. The Conservatives, if they want to stand a chance of surviving as a political entity, really need to change the way that they're operating. They need to be conservative. They've got to put the country first. They've got to put our sovereignty absolutely fundamentally at the centre of their policy making. And that, of course, in the absence of all of that, opens up a massive amount of room for a party like Reform. And the ostensible ideology of Reform is absolutely, I'm at one with, which is at the centre, your foundational building block is the sovereign, democratic, prosperous, we hope, unit that is the United Kingdom.
Absolutely.
But I have got issues with Reform structure because it's a private limited company largely owned by Nigel and therefore controlled by him. They will not democratise, in my view. I've been watching very closely what they've been up to. They're telling the public that they'll democratise, but they haven't done it. And in my view, they won't do it. They released their branch rules earlier this week. And the branches that they're setting up around the country had been trumpeted as a democratic means of getting candidates up from grassroots and policies made and sent up to HQ, etc. But actually the rules themselves, now that they've been published, make it very clear that they see the branches as nothing more than campaign, instruments for campaigning at the direction of headquarters. They can't have their own bank accounts.
Can you? I don't mean to cut you short. Haven't got that. Haven't got that much time, buddy. And I love having you on. But very quick, can you see a situation where there is a change and you and Reform could get back together again?
Yeah, for me, the only thing that matters is that reform has a structure in place which will make sure that it stays true to its ideology and that it won't waver, and that those in charge of it recognize and can be held to account, recognize the movement that we represent and can be held to account by that movement, that there are checks and balances in place. And that's fundamental, in my view, to success. And if they do that, they will, whether or not I'm actually in the hierarchy as academic, they will have my full support, complete, full, undiluted support if they create a structure which is robust enough to form a government.
Listen, I speak for many. I love having you on. I hope you have a good Christmas and New Year. I would love to see whatever happens in the next 4.5 years. There is no doubt your voice, your sense, your intelligence needs to be at the forefront. Ben Habib, thank you so much indeed. Merry Christmas to you and your family. 5:23. This is Talk Drive. We're live across the UK. Ryan, we're halfway through and the voice is still working. Can I give you a Ryan, birthday Ryan? This is what he said. We're talking about Starmer off air in the last ad break. Jodie nearly wet herself. This is what he said. Do you know, he's also very short. Who is, Ryan? Keir Starmer. Why? Well, when he came in here to do Never Mind the Ballots, I went to the lift, stooped down, went in, and there he was. Ryan, everybody's frigging smaller than you. You're 8'3". This is Talk Drive. God.
Let's be clear. Elon Musk loves the United Kingdom, the home of English-speaking nations. He's got serious business interests here, whether it's X, whether it's Tesla, whether it's Starlink, and he wants the United Kingdom to do well. He wants our economy to grow, and he recognises that Labour's a catastrophe and that Britain needs reform in every sense, and that's why he's been speaking to Nigel, met our new Treasurer, Nick Candy, and, you know, he's put out there on X that, you know, we've got to turn this country around. We've got to reform our country.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Sir John Redwood, former Conservative MP, is just brilliant. He's thrown off the shackles of office. He'll be with us in a couple of minutes. Hello to Dave in Somerset. I know you said you don't believe in conspiracy theories, Jez, but I find it hard to understand that Starmer could be as bad as his governing peers. So do you think it could be possible that he, and whichever idiot is behind him, knows exactly what they're doing to this country? No, I don't. International socialism, courtesy of the British taxpayer, we're a charity set up to advance Starmer's narcissism. The UK is not big enough for him. Hello to MQ in Ripon in North Yorkshire. Talk. Starmer lacks insight into the consequences of his words or his actions. No, what's it, Sherlock? Steve's in East Yorkshire. Jez, I wonder what his wife thinks of his performance as PM. Surely she sees what a mess he's making. He must have spoken to him about it. If I was Starmer, you can be sure my wife would have given me one hell of a talking to. I'm not sure how often he's seen his wife. Maybe he's very busy. Yes. David's in Clacton. Jez, perhaps Ben should put his own political views and row with Nigel aside and actually work towards saving Britain. Very interesting. Sally's in Islington. Posh there. Jez Ryan's correct. I saw Starmer in a pub in Kentish Town once and he is dinky. Perhaps he has little man syndrome that would explain an awful lot. Happy birthday to Ryan. Thank you, Sally. To the phone lines. West Sussex. Dave, 2 minutes. What you got?
Well, on the Houses of Parliament, the laws are that if an MP or a PM lies, then they've got to resign.
Right. What's that got to do with it? Where I've lost my pen. Go on, crack on. What are you saying?
Well, yeah, Keir Starmer hasn't spoken the truth yet. He's lied on every single issue.
No, listen, he'd be the last person in the world I'd stick up for, but this is what he did. He did lie, but he'd say he lied because he didn't realise how big the black hole was that the Tories left. He will say the British taxpayer can't afford the waspy women. But this man was very, 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 very willing to tell anybody and everybody during the election campaign, I support waspy women, I support farmers. He told farmers to their faces. The man is a barefaced liar, but I go back to what I'm saying. You're stuck with him for 4.5 years. He ain't going anywhere. Anybody... Well, go on.
I don't think so, because Keir Starmer, when he led the CPS, he would not prosecute Jimmy Savile.
Listen, I remember being on air the day that Boris Johnson said that, and everybody, even people on the Tory benches, went, oh, you can't say that. Yeah, you can. When Keir Starmer started on Boris quite rightly about Partygate, he delivered a line which was, it's a massive building and you're in charge. Well, he was in charge of the CPS, and you are absolutely spot on. This man is without doubt a liar, a charlatan, but most of all, I think he's out of his depth. We appreciate your call. We're going live to the man who won't be in Panto next summer, but he might be next Christmas. Sir John Redwood, former Tory MP, hello.
Good afternoon. You're in good form as well today.
Oh, John. What can you please, now you've got your red tie on, man. What's going on? You haven't joined Labour, I mean.
It's Christmas.
All right, fair enough. I'll let you get off with that. That's good. Waspy women. Yet another, what I call group bedrock of our society. He's alienated pensioners. He's alienated waspy women. He's alienated farmers. He's alienated Brexiteers by his surrender squad going to Brussels yesterday. In your opinion, and you were an MP for many, many years, is this man out of his depth, completely and utterly deaf, or on some mission that we don't really understand? Because it seems to me that on a daily and weekly basis, he seems to be alienating millions and millions and millions of people, Sir John Redwood.
Yeah, I think he's out of his depth. He obviously has no political judgment. I think this is a man who was a clever public sector lawyer, and he's still thinking like an international lawyer, and that's what he does, and that's what he is. And so let's give the Chagos Islands away, because some international lawyers think we should. What about the British national interests? What about the essential requirements of the American naval base, which is more difficult if you've given it to a friend of China? And then it's, let's give some money to the EU, because wouldn't it be nice if they said nice things about us? But he doesn't have a strategy for what he wants to get out of the EU, and it looks as if he's going to surrender most of the things that they want, which we shouldn't be surrendering. And so he takes these very legalistic views and forgets about the British people, and he should be the advocate of all of us. He's our Prime Minister. We want him to do well, and instead he does badly, and as you rightly say, he picks on group after group after group to rob us, to pillage us, to take our money, to do things we don't want him to do, and to give parts of our country away to foreign interests.
And does he not believe, again, you are an elected representative, does he not understand, Sir John Redwood, that, I mean, in my mind, I could be wrong, I don't think pensioners will ever forget it. I think it'll be like Thatcher's poll tax. I don't think waspy women will ever forget a man in 2022 said, we will compensate these women. It is a massive injustice. I don't think that people who voted to leave the EU are going to forgive a man quite patently destined to get us closer. I don't think farmers, I've seen them in Westminster, they'll never forgive Sir Keir Starmer. So he has a political death wish, because the way it's going now, maybe I'm wrong, maybe the person who rang yesterday is right when they said the Tory party and Reform will bite lumps out of each other, they will deny each other a victory, and Starmer will get in again in 5 years via the back door.
But we've never seen a government bomb so comprehensively in 5 months, tear up the rather few promises it made in the election and do the opposite of what we thought they were going to be doing. We thought they weren't going to change the things that people liked. We thought they were going to change the things that people didn't like. They implied they were going to control migration. Well, they're not. And they don't seem to have a plan for it. They implied that they wanted to grow the economy faster. It happened the first half of this year to be the fastest growing G7 economy.
Not now.
A disappointing period. And instead, they completely undermined the growth strategy. They've taken the growth down to zero. And now today, the inflation, which obviously destabilised the last Conservative government, and they got blamed for it. A lot of it was actually responsibility of the Bank of England, but governments take the blame. They implied that they knew how to control inflation. Inflation has gone up ever since they arrived, and it is quite persistent. And the headline figure is 2.6. They inherited 2%. But if you look at the wider figure, which includes housing, and we all have housing costs, that's 3.5%. Now, that's a long way above the 2%, which they implied.
In 5.5 short months.
So get a grip. And why is housing going up so much? It's because far too many people are coming into this country that need housing. And at the same time, the Labour government is making it more difficult for landlords. So a lot of small landlords are saying, I can't be bothered with this. It's too difficult, too expensive. They're taxing me too much. So supply goes down, demand goes up. You've got inflation in housing, Labour. Fix it.
What's your view of Badenoch so far? She seems to have his measure at Prime Minister's question times. Not so sure there's enough meat on the bone. It's all about reform and Nick Candy and possibly Elon Musk. What do you make, firstly, of Kemi Badenoch, the new Conservative leader, Sir John?
Well, I think they were right to have an important debate on farmers. You are right to stress it. The small family farms are crucial to what food we do grow in this country, and they're dishing out subsidy to stop people growing food, mainly to larger farmers. And now they're trying to undermine those farming businesses and make them have to sell up rather than pass them on down the generations. That was a big lead that Kemi gave. And today she was right to go on the pensioners and people being cold over Christmas. And with the Christmas song that some media won't promote, being very popular with the public, it reinforces just how strongly we all feel about it. Why pick on the poorer pensioners and take their grant away? And why do they not know the answer to Kemi's very good question about if you give some of those pensioners a benefit 8-10 times as much as the one you're withdrawing and leave most of the rest without the benefit, could you end up with a lot of cold pensioners and no savings as well? I mean, that would be monumental incompetence.
Or as many of us think here, what about the $13 billion are giving in foreign aid? 4.3% of that budget would actually be paying for that £300 winter fuel allowance. I find that astonishing. And, of course, 10 years ago, you couldn't say that. You'd have been called every name under the sun. And I'm not. I absolutely appreciate that we should do what we can. We did it with Ukraine. But I'll tell you something. We need to look after our own, Sir John. And I genuinely believe, whether it's Kemi Badenoch or whether it's Nigel Farage or somebody else, in a minute, not just because of Starmer, people are fed up. They're fed up of living their lives correctly and paying their tax and never asking for a handout, never breaking the law. And the first time it becomes hard, it's not racist. You see people coming to this country ending up in hotels. You see prisoners being released with Gucci bags and new trainers. And if you're stuck in a traffic jam somewhere north of the Westminster bubble and you can't get home to see your kids before they go to bed, you're raging, John. And that for me is what this is all about. And I listen, whether it will be Kemi or Nigel, I have no idea, but somebody needs to. Can I just get a quick comment on you? Do you know this story about the Times newspaper? It's astonishing.
What's that?
The government has just now criticised Moscow's desperate rhetoric after a senior ally of Vladimir Putin threatened the Times newspaper over its coverage of the assassination of a Russian general. It was Lieutenant General Igor Krylov. The Times called him a legitimate act of defence, his death by Ukraine. As a result, a security spokesman for, are you ready for this? This is extraordinary, for Vladimir Putin, has said, and I quote, that journalists at the Times, our sister paper, were legitimate military targets and should be very careful as anything goes in London. That's in the last 2 hours, Sir John Redwood. That is strong words for the Russians, isn't it?
Well, that's extremely worrying and obviously completely unacceptable.
Yep.
Because we need journalists who report things fearlessly and are allowed to make comments. But going back to your earlier point about why we're so frustrated with this government, there is money around and there are even easier targets than some of the ones you mentioned. I mean, why 19 billion on carbon capture and storage?
There you go.
Other countries are not doing this. It doesn't add to anything. It's going to make our energy dearer. Why are they deindustrializing our country so quickly by being extreme on net zero in a way which means you have more CO2 worldwide? Why aren't they getting to grips with the very poor productivity in the great public sector that they're meant to be managing? Why do they keep on dishing out big wage increases without any productivity deals? I'm all in favour of people earning lots of money, but you've got to work smarter to get the money. And instead, people work less smart and they get a bigger pay rise because they're in the public sector. There are so many frustrating wastes of money that they ought to control so they can look after the pensioners and the farmers and all the other good causes.
Could not agree more. You have been my absolute revelation of the year. I'm definitely getting you in Panto next year, Sir John Redwood. But listen to this, because my voice is about to go.
Oh, no, you're not.
Oh, yes, I am. You told me that certain media outlets won't play the song. This, my friends, is a song by Sir Starmer and the Granny Harmers. This should be downloaded. If you get a chance, this needs to go to #1. The first ever politically motivated Christmas #1 will play out from Sir John for him. This is just a little feeling. Download it. Happy Christmas, Sir John Redwood. Have a listen.
It'll be freezing this Christmas while our money goes abroad. It'll be freezing this Christmas. Rachel Reeves is a fraud. It'll be cold, so cold, without fuel at home this Christmas.
UK on DAB+. on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile. The home of common sense. This is Talk.
Back 18 minutes to 6 o'clock. We're live across the UK. Kyle's voice is going, but we're going to get through to 7 o'clock. Can I just say, by the way, can I just take a minute and say thank you to everybody who's been trying to respond to the show today. 0344 419 1000 is our telephone number. You can text to 87222. Start your message with the word talk. And my amazing son, Oliver, who said to me that, well, he's amazing. He's nearly 5. He's 5 in a few weeks. He's really excited about Christmas. He sat there with his beautiful sister Iris and the older brother Henry, and they're all going, oh my God, it's on television. Well, Henry isn't, because he doesn't give us stuff. But Ollie, I love you, mate. I'll be home soon. Sam's in Barnsley. Jezza, never hears Keir in my circle of mates. He's known as Drill Bit. Why is he known as Drill Bit? Because he's a small, boring tool. That's very good. I like that. Dave Turner, hello. Kevin, Southampton, thank you very much indeed for your message. Many people trying to get on today. Hello to Steve. There is no money for the Waspies. What about the sub-post office workers? I'd like to see him roll back on their compensation. Gary Shaw or even Guy Shaw. Hi, Jez. Brilliant speaker Ben Habibis. Guy in Wakefield says we need him back. Hello to Adam from Burnley, loving the show. Ben Habib has had 2 elections for Reform and lost, so perhaps he's not quite as popular as some of us think, says Rosie Lamb. I think you're harsh, but there you go. You're entitled to your opinion. Also, hello to Sam Penty. Let's do voice notes. Very exciting, Oliver. We get voice notes. Lorenz on Labour, go.
Great show this afternoon. My mother, after the election, said to me, what do you think of Labour getting in? I said to her back in July it'd be an unmitigated disaster. My only surprise is how big a disaster and how quick it's been. And the other thing is, as you keep mentioning your wife, I thought better do a quick internet search, just put a face to the name, and looked her up, and with all the shots of you, and just thought, oh, that Ian Collins, he's a lucky man.
Good man. She won't be listening there, Mrs. K. James, on the Waspies, go.
Just a quick question from Jamie in Coventry. Just wondering, how much history are we going to have to pay for? I don't know enough about this Waspy women thing, but I know that we seem to be paying a lot of money for a lot of history. When's it going to end?
Couldn't agree more. Are you ready with my favourite voice note from this week? This was sent by a lovely man for drive time. 3, 2, 1, play.
Good King Wenceslas looked out at the Scrooge Keir Starmer, hated by the people and each and every farmer. Old folk viewed this heartless man as mean and harsh and cruel, stealing their £300 for their winter fuel.
Absolutely brilliant. Keep the voice notes coming. WhatsApp 0344 499 1000. We'll head to Edinburgh. Why did I do that? Jessica, you're on Talk Drive. A very good evening. My voice is going, which is pleasing millions. What can I do for you?
Yeah, good evening. I thought I'd never be more disgusted at the SNP of what they do. Anyhow, it came about at the weekend, we heard here that they're donating £1 million to the illegal immigrants' travel.
Sorry, the SNP in Scotland are donating £1 million to what?
To the illegal immigrants' travel, free travel.
Right.
And they're refusing to put anything towards the old age pensioners, their heating allowances, which I think is very disgusting.
It's more than disgusting, and I ask you this question because... please do excuse me. I ask you this question. You see, in years gone by, if people used that sort of language, Jessica, and I understand it, and I understand people would say, oh, that's outrageous to speak like that. And we never did. We never talked about illegal migrants because, of course, people would jump up and down and say that's unfair. Once this country showed, I think, its worth in many instances, notably Ukraine, when we opened our doors, I was proud of that. But I do believe, and yours is another example from Scotland, that we are getting to a point where not radical right-wing fascists, not those sorts of people, right? Not everybody, Keir Starmer, who disagrees with your nanny state crap is a far-right activist. There are hard-working, Tory-based people who believe that you should have low taxation, should look after pensioners, you should have a strong military, you should have police who control your streets rather than are frightened of going on the streets. And I don't believe that that's going to go away. And I keep saying it, Jess. I look at America and I believe this country will have a Donald Trump moment in the next 10 years because I think we're all hacked off, aren't we?
well, you can say what you like about Donald Trump. I think he's wonderful, and I think it's what we need over in this country. We need to get rid of all these, especially the Labour government it's in just now. I mean, they're absolutely diabolical. They are.
Well, it's good to have you on the show. I hope you have a good Christmas and keep it talk. People are already texting saying, let's hope Jez's voice goes between now and 7. I'm thinking that if it goes for his birthday, Ryan Thrussell will take control of the microphone if my voice starts to go. Maybe with Jodie. Maybe if it does continue, it'll be a double header. We're going to our break. You heard Ivor and his song for drive time. This is Arrival. Adam in Burnley, go.
Just thought I'd give people a snapshot of the country, what we're living in at the moment. I've had 3 jobs this week, and the first job was a single mom. Sorry, let's just rewind. That was written by Ryan, so you've made a massive cock up there on your birthday, yeah? This is absolutely down to you. Come in here. Just come here. Come on. Because it's your birthday and it's important. It's not humiliation. I don't mind looking an idiot. Come here. What happened there, birthday boy? Here he is. Let's get him on camera. Come on. This is look at that. See how tall he is? Can you just get down here? What happened then?
I put the wrong voice note in the folder and then Amy played it.
Did she?
Yeah.
Happy birthday, by the way.
Thank you very much.
You're going out with your wife tonight?
Yeah, I can't wait to get there. And you'll probably give me your sore throat.
Well, I think that what will happen is before the end of the show, you'll have to do it and you won't be able to go out. Anyway, there we go. There he is, 8'7" of the birthday boy. Another cock up, live on Talk Drive. Back in 3.
This is on a par with, you know, Nick Clegg breaking his pledge on tuition fees.
Yeah.
You know, you've seen it, your viewers have seen it. Set aside the debates about the issue for a second. There are debates about whether or not this compensation should be paid. But Keir Starmer and his colleagues had come down on the side of the debate.
Yeah.
It had been very clear.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 8 minutes to 6 o'clock. Many people delighted. My voice is going. Happy birthday, Ryan, says Margaret. I think two-tier Keir, no idea. The farmer harmer will resign within 2 years. That's my prediction. Hope you get lots of mince pies. I've had no idea where that's come from. Ryan looks like a top man. He must be. He's a Watford supporter. Come on, you horns. Happy birthday. Trevor, they think you're some sort of... They're saying that you look like some sort of sex god, Ryan. This is frightening. This is great. My gran used to say, if your voice is going, Jez, put a sock in it. So suck your sock for 30 seconds. You try saying that. Andrew from Salisbury. And this is breaking news from GW. My iTunes favourite, the Granny Harmer, so Starmer and the Granny Harmer, we've been playing it all afternoon, is currently #1 on the iTunes chart. I'm going to keep playing it, but right now, at 8 minutes to 6, we've ditched Sam Ellard. I mean, I'm gutted, but we've got the main man. Let's push the sport button, please.
Sport Summary on Talk.
Apparently, if it works, we're going live to the Emirates, to the legend that is Sam Matterface. And Sam, many people delighted, but my voice is going, so down to you. It's not funny.
How you getting on, you right?
Struggling.
Listen, I've heard that parsley, eat parsley. It sorts you out. That's one of our other presenters, Adrian Durham, our lead football presenter on a Saturday. Whenever he's struggling with his voice, he always just chugs down a whole bag of parsley. It's not the nicest tasting snack, but apparently it does the trick. There
I tell you, I heard a great story the other day. Michael Ball has got a gap where his wisdom tooth. This is bizarre. Sung all those songs for years. And whenever he got a bad voice, he put one of those vocal zone, those little black sweets that are really strong, in the hole, in the gum, and would keep it for the whole performance. Only one day shouted too loud and hit a man in the front row. But this is a genuinely true story, so I'm going to try it. But never mind, Sammy, how are we doing?
Anyway.
EFL quarter-finals, 3 of them tonight.
Christmas tradition, this is how we get ready for Christmas now. We start with the darts, and then the EFL Cup, Carabao Cup, takes over for the quarter-finals stage. We got 3 tonight, 1 tomorrow, 3 of them live over the TalkSport network. Southampton, Liverpool is on TalkSport 2 this evening. I'm at the Emirates for Arsenal against Crystal Palace. It's a 7:30 kickoff tonight. And then tomorrow night, Tottenham against Manchester United. And I suppose the Manchester United story is the big one. Our colleague from TalkSport, Henry Winter, breaking the story yesterday that Marcus Rashford is open to a move away from Old Trafford. It's dominated the news agenda today. And I'm not surprised because this is a story that I think has been coming to a head for a long time now. He's been struggling with his form on the pitch. There's been rumours and reports about what he's been doing off the pitch. Obviously, we all saw the fallout of what happened in Belfast a couple of months ago. And it hasn't gone well for him it hasn't gone well for him for a long time, but even under the new manager, where you hoped he was going to get a new lease of life. Because I think the other thing to mention here is all we want is for Marcus Rashford to get back to where he was 2 seasons ago when he was banging in 30 goals a season. But that hasn't happened, and I think he is probably in need of a fresh start.
I don't want to be...
start comes, I don't know.
I don't want to be outrageous when I say this, because I think what he did up in Manchester for school dinners for kids was really massively important. But would it be fair to say, Sammy, that as his star rose and he became more popular and he got involved with stuff, that maybe, just maybe, the focus on what he was good at disappeared? You talk about Belfast. I can't ever see that happening when Fergie was there. I'm just being serious. I can't ever see that happening, and maybe he does need to start again.
Well, it is interesting that you talk about the discipline, because Ruben Amorim, who is the new Manchester United head coach, dropped him from the squad on Sunday for a Manchester derby. It's a massive, huge game, their biggest match that they've got to play this side of Christmas. And he was cut from the squad because of what he said was, I don't like what I see in training. We've got to make sure that you eat right. You've got to make sure that you behave right. You've got to make sure you dress right. I mean, you could argue that Marcus Rashford maybe has fallen foul of most of those boxes that you're supposed to tick in the recent period. But the most important thing is he's not contributing on the pitch. No. So it doesn't matter whether or not what you're doing off the pitch. If you're not contributing on it, you're going to find yourself out of the team. I think it's good that the new manager's installed that discipline. I think Manchester United as a club need that discipline. And it may well be that he ends up moving on. Where he goes, I think that is a real fascinating question, because it's been spoken to me today that it's possible he'll go to Spain. I see very few routes in Spain for him. Nobody necessarily in anywhere else apart from possibly PSG could afford his wages, but they've gone down a very different route under Luis Enrique in his second season in charge. So the escape routes for Manchester United aren't easy at the best of times because you're only ever going really in one direction, aren't you, if you leave Manchester United?
Well, yeah, I mean, in terms of history, but certainly not in terms of... I mean, maybe he needs to fire it up somewhere else. It'll be very interesting. Tonight, as you said, 3 EFL quarter-finals, Arsenal-Palace. Palace, a bit of an upturn in form. They were in real trouble, but they've done really well in recent weeks, haven't they?
Yeah, got their attack firing. They're starting to score more goals. So 1 defeat in 9 now. 5 games unbeaten for Oliver Glasner. It takes on an Arsenal side that have been struggling to score goals from open play. Their set pieces are brilliant. They've scored a lot of goals from set pieces this season, but scoring goals from open play has sort of dried up recently, and I think they need to do that. I think they'll change a couple of players tonight. You might see Raheem Sterling in the team this evening, for example. You might see 1 or 2 of the younger kids as well. But Arsenal need to get through to a semi-final. They haven't won this competition, Jez, since before Arsene Wenger was the manager. 1993, the last time they lifted the League Cup.
I'm going to make a prediction. Arsenal, Crystal Palace. You're going to laugh at me. I think Palace are going to win. Newcastle, Brentford. My second team, Eddie Howe, needs a trophy. But Brentford, they're everybody's bogey team. They either lose 3-0 or they're astonishing and they win 4-3. He's done such a good job there, hasn't he? But where do you see that one? Newcastle, Brentford tonight, pal?
Brentford have won 1 game away from home all season, and that was at League 2 Colchester in this competition right at the end of August. So I would suggest that I think Newcastle might get over the line. But you're right about Brentford. Very well coached team, very difficult team to play against, and Thomas Frankie's going to get an away win at some point. It might be tonight.
And finally, managerless Southampton against Liverpool. I mean, it's not even worth having a bet.
Don't ask me the question. Don't ask. You know the answers to the question already, don't you?
What's that?
That Liverpool are going to win.
No, I was going to ask you if you have any idea who the next Southampton manager is. I'm not going anywhere. Of course Liverpool are going to win. Any news on a new manager at Southampton?
Kasper Kjolmand was linked yesterday with a job. He's a former Danish international coach. He left at the end of I think he left at the end of the Qatar World Cup, but he was really highly thought of in Denmark. There is a high sort of proportion of Danish officials behind the scenes at Southampton. The sporting director, part owner, is Rasmus Ankersen, and he's got a heavy influence on who's going to be the next boss. They've got a new chief executive who sort of answers to him, really. So I'd suggest it would go down that sort of route.
Listen, mate, we really appreciate... Great to have the sound tonight. Makes it so much easier. The amazing Sam Matterface, TalkSport lead commentator, live from the Emirates tonight. 3 of the EFL Cup quarter-finals, live and exclusive on Talk. Arsenal, Crystal Palace from the Emirates. Newcastle, Toonami, live from St James's Park against Brentford. And Southampton, managers this Southampton against league leaders Liverpool, all on TalkSport tonight. It's almost 6 o'clock. We're live across the UK. My voice is definitely going to go. We're standing by for Brendan O'Neill. We've 1 hour to go on Ryan's 42nd birthday. The news at 6 is next. Don't go anywhere.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile. The home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 2 minutes past 6, the final hour of drive time for Wednesday. You might think, God, what's happened to his voice? I feel lubricated. Jodie has provided lubrication for me. I feel different to I did 5 minutes ago. God, she's given me a cough, so it's burnt my throat. Right, 0344 419 1000 is our telephone number. You can WhatsApp a message to birthday boy Ryan. You can text 87222. Start your message with the word talk. At the beginning of the week, Ivor, not an engine, a human being, made a lovely song up for drive time. It went like this.
Good King Wenceslas looked out at the Scrooge Keir Starmer, hated by the people and each and every farmer. Old folk viewed this heartless man as mean and harsh and cruel, stealing their £300 for their winter fuel.
That was Ivor. Adam's been working all week. He says, Jez, Ivor can do one. I'm the main man. This is Adam. Have a go.
Away in other countries, no thought for the old. He's taken their payments, so now they are cold. He shafted the farmers and gone back on his word. Now, Keir, please do one, 'cause Labour is terrible.
That's my favourite one ever. Adam in Burnley. Let's get our next guest on. I'm going to play again. Brendan O'Neill, Chief Political Writer of Spikes. How are you, my friend?
Hey, Jeremy, how's it going?
Did you hear that?
I did hear it. Wonderful songs. I'm not so sure about the singing, but the songs were great.
Well, the singing's crap. Let's be perfectly honest, but we'll play it again in a bit. Brendan, thank you very much indeed for joining us. On a day where I don't know where to start anymore, I'm going to start away from Keir Starmer on the shocking news that we got 2 hours ago, and the government have criticised, but Moscow, reacting to the Times' coverage, or rather an editorial, basically Lieutenant General Igor Krylov, which is I mean, he's basically was in charge of Russia's nuclear, biological and chemical defence troops, was blown up the other day, and the Times newspaper described it as a legitimate act of defence by Ukraine. The response of Russia 4 hours ago, I'd love your take on this. The former Russian president and currently Deputy Secretary of Council said journalists at the Times, this is Dmitry Medvedev, journalists at the Times were legitimate military targets and should in future be very careful as anything goes in London. Now, I'm not trying to over-egg this. Is that a declaration of war? Are you threatening journalists at our newspaper, The Times, part of News UK? You can't do that, can you?
Absolutely not. I mean, on the one hand, it's shocking, but it's not particularly surprising. You know, Moscow is a tyrannical regime. We know that they have a ruthless disregard, not only for life and limb, but also freedom of the press. They don't allow their people to protest. You don't have freedom of speech in Russia. They now seem to think they can export that tyranny to other countries like Britain and declare war on the Times of London, of all places. I think it's horrifying. And I think the Times was right that this guy is a legitimate target. He was a mastermind of Russia's nuclear capability and a lot of their military strategy. He helped to impose untold sorrow and suffering and death on the people of Ukraine. And I think Ukraine had every right to target him as part of the war they're having with Russia. But then to turn it on the Times just for stating that truth and to almost threaten their journalists with some kind of payback, it's really sickening.
I mean, Medvedev is a nightmare anyway, the former Russian president and current Deputy Security Council there. For people just tuning in, The Times wrote an editorial about Ukraine taking out a particularly poisonous Russian lieutenant in charge of chemical and biological weapons. That'll tell you everything. The Times wrote a legitimate editorial piece, and this Russian has told journalists at the Times, journalists at the Times are now legitimate military targets and should be very careful as anything goes in London. I mean, it's astonishing, man, isn't it? Astonishing.
Absolutely. And I think the Labour government needs to be very firm. I know it's already commented, but it needs to be very firm and to say that this is an utterly unacceptable threat. It sounds like a threat against British citizens.
But you know the Labour government isn't going to go that strong, right? That's not going to happen. They're going to make some wispy-waspy, ironic. But listen, they have responded. We'll certainly update you, but that is our sister newspaper, The Times. And the beauty of journalism is that you are free to write and think and speak. We have free speech in this country. To me, that sounds extraordinary as some sort of threat. You're right. It'd be very interesting to follow that up. Brendan, our final time together before Christmas, one of the things that I love about having you on, you've always been very honest, you've always been very straight. I'm going to put to you what I put to Ben Habib and Russell Crowe and Mike Graham earlier. I want you to try and explain to me how you see Keir Starmer. I've watched for 23 weeks a man win a huge majority by saying nothing. I always knew he was a socialist. But seemingly set about, and you can call them Tory voters, you can call them legitimate targets. I would call pensioners, farmers, Brexiteers, small business owners, waspy women. I would call them legitimate parts of the structure of the United Kingdom. And what I don't understand from a political point of view is I would guarantee without any doubt, that those people will never forget what he's done. What is he thinking, Brendan? What's going on in his stupid head? Does he honestly think that these 3.5 million women will ever forgive him for saying in 2022, it's an injustice, they will be compensated, that's Labour's commitment. Today we can't afford it.
You know, it's really outrageous. And these are strong words, but I think we can now say that the Labour Party lied its way to power.
Yeah.
And, you know, I've said that we've all said that they've broken their manifesto pledges and they've gone back on their word, etc. I think it's now pretty secure that we can say they lied their way to get into Downing Street. And that is unforgivable. And even worse than that, they've declared war on the working class. They've declared war on working people. They've declared war on farmers with the inheritance tax fiasco, the people who make our food. They've attacked pensioners, people who've worked their whole lives at jobs, raising children, raising grandchildren. They're taking money away from them so they can't heat their homes in the way they used to. Now they're undermining the waspy women, having promised that they would return to them the money that they are owed because through no fault of their own, they missed out on certain pension benefits. They've just lied to ordinary working people time and again. And instead of helping these people as they promised they would, they are taking their money away from them. This is turning out to be an incredibly cruel, classist government. And you're right, people will not forget.
And this is my point. And, you know, when I was growing up, you're much younger than me, but when I was growing up, Labour was about the working classes. The Labour Party was about labourers. I don't believe that the working classes north of the bloody bubble of the M25 that I go on about every single day, I don't believe that they believe that Labour is their party anymore. I'm just mystified because it's almost on a daily basis. He or they make decisions that just resonate so badly. I mean, it's extraordinary. But listen, he will fall, I've no doubt, at some point. He can't, I mean, in my mind, if he carries on like this, he can't be re-elected. So God knows what happens. I'd like to ask you about the other story. Love Spikes and yours reaction to this. Elon Musk, Nick Candy, the billionaire new treasurer of reform, announced by Nigel Farage last week. He and Farage pictured earlier this week at Mar-a-Lago, Trump's Florida palace, I should say, with Elon Musk, who apparently is showing an interest in investing up to $100 million, 78, 80 million quid, for reform. I just want to ask you that. That's great, whether it happens or not, but let's just say it does. That doesn't change the political two-party system that we've got. Money, yes, organisation, form, a structure, I get all of that. Do you believe that reform, as a party, with that money, can smash that structure in 4.5 years' time or not?
Well, you know, I think you're right. It takes more than money. I mean, money is essential in politics, and people often go on about the problem of big money in politics, but you need money to run campaigns, to run offices, to put people up for election, etc. Money is required. There's also the real whiff of hypocrisy around this, because you have Labour people slamming Farage for thinking that he will take Musk's money. But, you know, Remainers were more than happy to get funding from George Soros, for example, who funded a lot of those anti-Brexit campaigns. So there has been foreign money in British politics for some time. And it to my mind, if it's always been like that, then why shouldn't it be with Musk and Farage? But the thing is, what Reform has got going for it is precisely what you said earlier, which is that the Labour Party is now the anti-Labour Party. It is anti-working class. It is taking money from out of people's banks. It is treating them like muck. It looks down its noses at ordinary people. There is a real opening for a smart party to sweep up working class votes. And Reform has done that in different ways and different guises. And it did very well at the election, the last general election. But I think we need a real push. We need a party that will very openly appeal to ordinary people and say to them, unlike Labour, we won't take your money and we won't take the mick. We will really treat you like good citizens.
And I think this is really right. And what I find fascinating about it as a viewpoint, I loathe the Liberal Democrats. I don't even know what they stand for, bar some mythical joke of a leader who gets dressed up in a leotard and jumps in the sea the whole time. But what they did do brilliantly in the last election was they targeted 80 seats that they knew Labour were nowhere near getting and the Tories were vulnerable, and they walked away with 72 seats with about 500,000, I think, votes less than Reform. I don't believe that Reform... I could be wrong, but I believe that Reform should be going to the next level next time and aiming for 100 seats or 125 seats, being allowed to, if you like, control some part of the process after that. But for me, and I keep saying it, I'd love your take on this, if we learn anything, or rather if politicians learn anything, they should look at Trump. The man that was ridiculed, and I certainly don't agree with a lot of what he says and some of what he does, but what he did do, and I say it every day, is he appealed to basic Americans with the things that matter. The money in their pocket, the fuel in their car, the food on their table, and the fact that they couldn't get to see a doctor or a dentist because their country, in his words, is being flooded by immigrants. Now, I believe in this country, people who were too scared to say that in recent years, Brendan, for fear of being labelled whatever, I think there's a groundswell of a feeling that this country, 85-year-old pensioner on early freezing colds, worked all his life, get terrified. I don't think we can go on like that, mate, and I think there's a power. I'm not talking... I've never known all sorts of people coming together. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. And I think Trump does show how it's done, because what Trump has done what the left has failed to do. He has created a brand new alliance of working class voters, cross-race, cross-generation, cross-geography, across the whole of America. Various hard-working, good people came together in their tens of millions to take a punt on Trump because he promises to give them more economic security and to treat them with a bit more cultural respect. A party like that in Britain could clean up. You know, the Lib Dems did it with a middle-class vote. They got loads of middle-class voters who are ticked off with the Tories or bored of Labour. Someone needs to do it with a working class vote.
I was in Newcastle 3 weeks ago at a football match, and in this particular box, right, I'm talking working class men, a couple with their own businesses, a paramedic, somebody who worked for the police, all sorts of, all watching their football team, the Toon, none of them, Brendan, none of them would even consider voting for the Tories ever again. They loathe Labour. They are all Reform voters. They all believe, as working class men who have dragged themselves up, by the way, before the Labour Party charged them even more tax, they all believe that Reform is the answer, whether it is or not. And it's not about saying, oh, there's going to be an uprising. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that as much as I believe the British people are fed up with politicians and they're fed up with divisiveness and they're fed up with, up and down, I think they're much wiser to the fact that actually their voice does count, that they have a right, and they shouldn't be scared to say what they feel, despite what Starmer tells us. And I think that's really powerful, pal, don't you?
Absolutely right. And, these are the kind of people whose families voted Labour for a very long time. Yeah. And then they turned to the Tories in the 1980s under Thatcher. And then again with Boris Johnson in 2019, they took a punt on the Tories. But they now feel sold out by the Tories as well. It makes perfect sense to me that lots of these working class voters are moving towards reform, moving towards populism, moving towards something else. Because you're right, their voices matter, and they increasingly know that their voices matter. matter. They increasingly know that they can't be taken for a ride anymore and that it's time politicians listen to them. So it's an exciting moment.
I agree. You see, I really agree with you on that. I think, we naturally take calls on this station, which is to the right. I get that. But we'll take calls from people saying, we need to petition the king, or you're not going to throw over Starmer. Something will happen. But what this time should be used for is finding a coherent voice of people. I mean, I remember watching the American election thinking at one point, and Mike Graham would tell me every day, Trump's going to win, and I would watch this woman burning $1.5 billion or whatever it was in 6 weeks and think, oh, my God. But actually what he did was he addressed not the elite, not ideological politics, not virtue signalling rubbish, the things that matter to people. And I think politicians in this country, and I agree with you, if somebody can talk about the things that matter to people, really matter to people, it will make a huge, huge difference. One final story. When Labour came in with an 11 million black hole, they turned it to 22 billion by giving all their union mates a big pay rise, notably train drivers. New Year's Eve rail chaos, we find out today, as train managers announced strike over rest days, New Year's Eve, Christmas Day, Boxing Day, and every Sunday for the next 5 months. They've just had 15%. They get 81 grand for a 4-day week, man. What is wrong with these people?
It was that part of it that shocked me most. Every Sunday until May, I think, mid-May. I mean, that's really horrendous. Loads of people get trains on Sundays,
yes,
for days out to visit family. It's like they're picking the day when people are most likely to get the train for leisure purposes. It's quite cruel, I think. I think everyone in this country deserves a good wage and a good pension, and they should stop being mucked around by the government and anyone else. But these train drivers are going to tick off other working class people who want to enjoy their lives as well as working hard. And I just think they're going to lose so much support as a result of this strike. And I think they need some self-reflection and ask themselves, is this really the right thing to be doing to our fellow working people over the Christmas period?
And also, what it will also do is what happened in 79. You're too young. What will happen is the Labour Party will come into power, as they've done, give huge pay rises to the people who have supported them and got them there, because that's what happened. It's a deal. And then every other union with a bloody brain cell goes, well, they've had 20%, I want 20%. And guess what? 2 years later, every union's had a pay rise. If they're not, they're on strike. And because they've all got it, inflation's through the bleeding roof and everybody's screwed. And that's the reality of what we're talking about. So, yeah, for me, the problems pile up for Keir Starmer. I think it's been... For me, the 6 months of Starmer has been the most astonishingly bad start to any premiership. Don't you think, in political history almost?
It's unbelievable. The incompetence, the stupidity, the deceit, the lies they told. I do think this is the worst start to a government in British history. And the irony, of course, is they told us they were the sensible people coming back into power to restore normalcy and calm and peace. They've done the precise opposite. I can't wait for the next opportunity to vote these people out.
Good man. Happy Christmas to you, Brendan. Thank you always for coming on the show. We'll see you in 2025. Brendan O'Neill, Chief Political Writer of Spite. This is Talk Drive, 6:20.
let's be clear. Elon Musk loves the United Kingdom, the home of English-speaking nations. He's got serious business interests here, whether it's X, whether it's Tesla, whether it's Starlink, and he wants the United Kingdom to do well. He wants our economy to grow, and he recognises that Labour's a catastrophe and that Britain needs reform in every sense, and that's why he's been speaking to Nigel, met our new Treasurer, Nick Candy, and, you know, he's put out there on X that, you know, we've got to turn this country around. We've got to reform our country.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 24 minutes past 6 o'clock. Kev O'Sullivan here with his political asylum, which frankly he should be sent to. At 7 o'clock, Petri Hoskins from 10 tonight. This is JK. You want to be on? 0344 499 1000 is my telephone number. You can send a WhatsApp as well on the same number. You can text 87222. Start your message with the words talk. Lisa in Broome. All right, mate. Jez, I've always considered myself left-wing politically, but guess what? I'll also be voting for reform at the next election because they are talking sense. Michelle says, all the lies of Labour could have been... I'm going to disagree with this, but I'll tell you why in a sec. All the lies of Labour could have been uncovered had journalists done their jobs. Rachel Reeves, for instance, could have been called out on her economist lie way before the election took place, but no one did. Not only have MPs failed us, Jez, I believe the media and journalists have as well. Let me tell you something. I believe categorically, and I would always take criticism, that the media and journalists could have told you lot, all of us actually, everything that you know now. Not that we would ever have found out because Labour did what Labour had to do, which was kept quiet and got elected because the Tories were bloody awful. That is the truth. Whatever any Tory tells you, they should put their hands up and admit that. The British public could stop listening to the Tories, right? I don't believe that if I told, we weren't allowed to, you could have printed in every newspaper about Labour, and so bad were the Tories, right, in people's minds, that they were allowing this disgusting human being to be our Prime Minister. John Rymer from Angus, you said Starmer would do something which would bring him down after Christmas. I think you're absolutely right. All those Labour MPs, when they go back home over the holidays, they won't want to go out of their houses because every time they meet anybody, we're moaned at and called liars and such like. It'll be very interesting to see what happens. I'll tell you a man with his finger on the pulse, the Shadow Transport and Business Minister, Tory MP for Mid-Buckinghamshire, Greg Smith. A very good evening to you, sir. How are you?
Evening. Very good. Very good. Merry Christmas.
Wow. I want to start with a smile on your face because this station and this show is going to advocate, and I'm delighted to tell you that this song by Sir Starmer and the Granny Harmers in the last, I don't know, couple of hours has reached #1 on the iTunes chart. I want it to stay there because I want the ridiculous BBC to have to play it. If you're just tuning in, Greg Smith won't mind. Here's a little soupçon from the song we need to get to #1 because it tells the truth about that pain in the arse in Downing Street. Play it.
It'll be freezing this Christmas while our money goes abroad. It'll be freezing this Christmas. Rachel Reeves is a fraud. It'll be cold, so cold, without fuel at home this Christmas.
I don't think in all of my lifetime, Greg, and I'm much older than you, that I've ever known that a politically motivated song could well be top of the Christmas charts. What's you and your party's response to this song? Because for many of us, it tells the goddamn truth about Keir Starmer and the BBC as well, my friend.
Well, it does. And it's a tragedy that this song even had to be made in the first place. But sometimes, you know what? Satire is the best check on power and the best way to cut through and really get people to understand what's going on. And, you know, the Conservatives have opposed the withdrawal of the winter fuel allowance throughout. I raised it again with one of the health ministers this afternoon, saying, come on, what's the impact? If you're going to take the money that people need to heat their homes away from them, very vulnerable people, we know that living in a cold or a damp house can impact your cardiovascular system. It's going to lead to respiratory illness and hospital admissions. I said, come on, what's your impact assessment? What's going to happen to add to all the winter pressures in the NHS? No answer, just waffle and the usual political nonsense that sometimes happens in the House of Commons. This is a very serious issue. And what this song is doing is using satire, is using the platform of music to be able to get that message across. And the fact that BBC are trying to say they don't want to play it.
Are you surprised? This is an organisation that in 15 months won't call Hamas a terrorist organisation. Of course they're not going to play it, man, because that's everything that they don't want to hear. I want to put this to you in the nicest possible way. Whilst I agree with everything, a lot of people that would phone this show are even more angry with your party than at the end of your part, because they now say the sheer incompetence of the end of the Tory government has led this country to have what, without being rude, has to be described as the worst 6 months ever to the start of a premiership. And I said to somebody the other day, to have alienated some of the core people in this country, pensioners, farmers, small business owners, Brexiteers, waspy women, they can't have a career in this. I mean, the man could never be re-elected. What do you say to those voters who will say, I got conned because of how bad the Tory party was?
So, look, I understand it. There's no sugarcoating it. We had the most almighty thumping in the general election on the 4th of July. And I've been very clear since that election. So has Kemi Badenoch, actually, our new leader, that we've got to put our hands up to the mistakes that we did make that led to the public rejecting us and throwing us out of power in, you know, quite a big way back in July. And we've got to build that trust back. We've got to re-earn the right to be heard, frankly. You know, you said earlier that, you know, people would stop listening to us, and sometimes that happens in politics, and we've got to re-earn the right to be heard all over again. And part of that is holding this government to account and pointing out where they're failing pensioners and farmers and businesses and anybody who employs anybody and creates jobs in our economy and so forth. Yeah, this is a horrendous government that has got a really left-wing agenda. We need to call it out. We need to make sure it's one of the shortest-lived governments in history. But part of that is on us re-earning that right to be trusted again and to put forward a Conservative agenda.
That's the point. Now, as the Shadow Transport and Business Minister, I'd love your response today to the news. I mean, again, New Year's Eve rail chaos. Now, this isn't necessarily the drivers, it's also the managers. But train managers associated with unions who have already been given a massive pay rise by this bloody government, I presume in return for financing their journey to 10 Downing Street, have announced strikes over rest days, New Year's Eve, and over the holidays. I mean, to fellow workers, but perhaps even more cynical, as somebody said just now, every Sunday for 5 months. Now, you're much younger than me, right? But I remember what happened, and I keep saying it for a reason. I remember 79. If you didn't get 20, 25%, you went on strike. So every union was either so bloated that inflation went through the roof, or there was rubbish on the streets and green goddesses picking up ill people because they hadn't had their pay rise yet. Country was held to ransom, and it went skint. That's the disgrace of Sunak. I have to say, Greg, and I'm not putting it at your door, that's the disgrace, because we're going to have this for 4.5 years. They've just had a massive pay rise and they're back on strike. And it's not going to change.
Look, if you feed the alligator, it's going to keep snapping at you. Yeah. And that's what has actually happened here. The Labour thought they would, you know, just bend over and give the unions what they asked for, and they've done that in terms of these bumper pay increases we've seen, certainly in the railways. We've seen that. I'm the Shadow Minister on responding to the Employment Rights Bill. I mean, that is a really left-wing, dictated to the government by the unions bit of legislation that is causing businesses up and down the country to say, we're expecting lower profits, we expect to employ fewer people, we're probably going to have to lay people off. These are the engines that actually make money for our economy, that actually fund the public services.
I don't think they even understand understand the Labour Party.
Walking all over them.
I know, and I don't think they even understand that if you build a business, a small business which grows, you employ people, and the profit and the money that you make permeates down to the economy, and people benefit. They see anybody earning over a certain amount of money, bar train drivers, obviously on 81 grand for a 4-day week. Just thought I'd get that in. They will consider that against what they believe in. But what I wanted to say to you was, and this is really important. Somebody, I actually think it was our last guest, Brendan O'Neill. The Labour Party has lost the working class vote. They do not represent anybody north of Watford Gap. I believe they got on and in because of the incompetence of your party. How do you imagine, up against reform and all the slick stuff that goes on, how do you get that ear open again? How do you get through to those people, Greg?
So we've got to be very open and honest. We've got to put our hands up to the mistakes that we made. We've got to admit that. And now we've got to get on with two jobs. We've got to get on with the technical job of opposition, calling out the Labour government, trying to build that pressure up in the pressure cooker to get them to start U-turning on some of their absolute worst excesses. But we've also got to do, which Kemi has started through our policy commissions, coming up with a comprehensive, good, conservative offer to the country for the next general election based on our values, our principles, and things that I think the country actually want to see.
Well, where
we can actually be credible about offering lower taxes that will get prosperity going, that will get businesses the confidence to employ more people and to grow and to ensure that we've got the sort of country that we all want to see. That's not going to happen overnight.
No.
There's no way I can sit here on your show this evening and say all the things that are going to appeal to the British public at the next general election. We've got to go through that process slowly, methodically, and with real clarity and vision. And then we can go to the country and hopefully make people excited about the Conservatives again.
Let me tell you, as an ex-Tory voter, very honestly and very candidly with you, I voted Reform. I'm 59, and I'll tell you why. And I took real exception to your old leader. This is why I didn't vote for you, right? When he described a vote for Reform was a vote for Labour, but then he said Reform are far right. Greg, I'm 59. I was brought up on low taxation, strong military, strong police, not a fear of crime. Criminals were scared of the police. Yep. Strong borders, right? All those things that somehow some parts of the press, when Reform jumped up and said, that's far right. That's not far right. For me, the Tory party went to the centre, under Johnson as well, started talking about green issues. They need to get back to Tory values because, in my mind, Reform are going to grab that rug from under your feet. That's the battle that you have. Can you ever see a situation where Reform and the Tories get together to beat this Labour Party?
Well, look, Reform are the new kids on the block. You've got to respect the fact that they got 4 million votes in the general election. They won 5 seats in the House of Commons. That's, they've never had an MP before other than Lee Anderson when he defected from the Conservatives in the last Parliament. However, I genuinely believe that whilst they will come up with some ideas that we can all agree with, and they're often in the same voting lobbies as us in the House of Commons, it's the Conservative Party as the most successful political force in British history, clearly at a low ebb right now, but historically that successful political fighting force that can come back and to defeat socialism, defeat this Labour government right now. Who knows what the result of the next general election will be? We're actually fighting a war on multiple fronts. We've got 72 Lib Dem MPs who are basically Labour. In fact, some of them are to the left of Labour, and we've got to beat those as well in order to get a right-of-centre, genuinely conservative, low-tax, freedom-loving government back into the United Kingdom.
Listen, it's always great to have you on, Greg. Congrats on the new job. I listen to what you say. I'm interested. I hope you have a great Christmas. And thank you for making talk. And when you get off the phone, download the song. It's going to #1. This is Talk Drive. What is it? 24 minutes to 7. 24 minutes and Ryan's going to get wrecked on his birthday.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile. The home of common sense. This is Talk.
Oh, my God, I've come back and you're talking about getting drunk. Welcome back, 22 minutes to 7 o'clock. What's me old man doing? Oi, Davey, what are you doing, son? Dave Levine, who used to work here but got ousted because he... No, joking, we miss it. I need to talk to you. Anyway, 0344 419 1000. Welcome back. Kev is here from 7 o'clock. And Petri Hoskins from 10. Now, before we talk about the Christmas weather, OK, yesterday, Ivor did a little song for us about Starmer. I love it, Ivor, but today, Adam from Burnley completely... Can I just say, the singing's crap, the words are great. Have a listen.
Away in other countries, no thought for the old. He's taken their payments, so now they are cold. He shafted the farmers and gone back on his word. Now, Keir, please do one, 'cause Labour is terrible.
Bet you can't improve on that in the next 20 minutes. 0344 419 1000. It won't be white this Christmas. I'm not getting involved. Joe Wheeler, meteorologist for the Square Raindrop. The Square Raindrop? I don't know what that means. Joe, honestly, how are you? Honestly, I sound like... No, I don't sound like Jonathan Ross. Joe Wheeler, how are you?
I can still say Square Raindrop, which is more than you can.
Well, last time we spoke, you couldn't have said your name, so I think the role reversal has happened. Happy Christmas, me darling. How are you?
I'm absolutely fine, but I have been watching this whole Christmas situation like a hawk. I do love my long-range forecasts, and this has been changing day by day. I mean, literally, you know, over the past couple of weeks, there have been so many newspaper headlines going... 30-mile wall of snow coming, you know, and the entire of the UK to sink into Arctic conditions.
Please.
It's like, I'm not sure you're right, actually. I'm not sure you're right at all.
Why is it that we're so obsessed with the white Christmas? What I find astonishing about snow and everything is that there's never anybody in the middle. People either are obsessed with it, like me, or they find it so appalling they never want it to snow at all. But as ever, it's not going to snow on Christmas Day. It's going to be mild and miserable and dull and dreary, and by 3 o'clock in the afternoon we'll all want it to be January again because we won't have liked our presents and we'll have a hangover from lunch.
We're not sure yet. Not sure yet.
Oh, yes, you are.
Sorry, it looks like we're looking at high pressure for Christmas Day at the moment. And I have to say, the Met Office, with their deep dive and their 10-day trend, they forecast this some time back, despite there's a very interesting interaction of the jet stream coming out of the States with...
What does that mean? A very interesting... You need to get out more. How is the interaction of a jet stream interesting, Wheeler? What does that mean?
Well, it's the kind of thing that I find interesting. You know, you've got the jet stream, which is strong. It catches up with this low-pressure system in the southwest, and then it starts pushing it all over the place with a degree of development in places. And then after that, we get this high-pressure developing to the west of the UK. Now, even when you've got a high pressure, which generally brings settled conditions and mostly fine conditions, it still depends where it is. If it is to the west of the UK,
yes,
it's going to bring easterly winds. If it's a little further over, it's going to bring southwesterlies. So the southwesterlies mild, easterlies not so, certainly not at this time of year. So where that high pressure is actually still critical. And things can still change. Like I said about those newspaper headlines, I mean, literally 2-3 days ago, they're going, wall of snow, Arctic conditions, it's going to be like this, and Santa's going to be going across the sky on his sleigh. Yeah, well, maybe so. And now it's all changed, and it's going to be mild, and eastern parts of the country could see temperatures up to 13, 14 degrees Celsius.
Has it ever snowed on Christmas Day? Because I can't remember when it's ever snowed. Today, very, very windy today, very windy.
It was. Now, I can tell you, 2010, 2011, and possibly even 12, because I just come back from living abroad. So it was really the first time the kids had seen snow, and certainly we had all these snow days because the schools could not open. We couldn't get anywhere. So yes, there was very heavy snow in those times. And of course, again, being on the East Coast, 2018, the beast from the East, you know, I thought my life was over. My car got stuck in a snowdrift, which literally formed in 90 seconds. You know, utterly terrifying. And I have to say, okay, if it doesn't snow at Christmas, at least people can travel. That's good news.
Listen, absolutely. I just am always in awe of people like you who are genuine. I mean, you genuinely are excited by the weather, aren't you?
I am, yes.
Do you think that this says a lot about you, or do you think you'll provide... I mean, why? Why are you excited?
My other passion is vacuum cleaners, so I think that gives you a kind of a base level.
I'm quite good on that because I've had a Dyson for years and I've just bought a Shark. What are your thoughts?
Well, it depends which Dyson, which Shark. I mean, I have 12 here. And
you have what?
I have 12 vacuum cleaners.
Why?
Because I like vacuum cleaners.
Right, so you expect me to believe a word you've said about the weather at Christmas when it comes across that you're a sort of hoarder of vacuum cleaners?
No, I study them. And
no, Joe, this is boring now. I thought weather was... You study vacuum cleaners? Why?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, because some are better for one thing or another, you know, and then you've got your carpet cleaners as well. You know, sorry, I literally could go on.
Have you got a steam mop?
Yeah, no. I have a Bissell Crosswave, which vacuums and cleans the floor at the same time.
No, you need a steam mop, that's it. Kevin O'Sullivan is coming in the studio because he cannot believe that somebody's got 12 Hoovers. Joe, no way is it going to be a white Christmas, but whatever it is, we love having you on the show. We're very, very grateful. And do me a favour, don't drink too much because you've been known to have a couple in the past.
I won't.
Usually with me. Love you. Thank you so much. Happy Christmas. Joe Wheeler, meteorologist at Square Raindrop, or Wayne Square Drop, as I said earlier. We've got 14 minutes to go. Ryan's birthday. Who's coming through that door, Ryan? 0344 419 1000. Look. Why do you think Levine's here? He's ready to replace you. You're going to be kidnapped. We're coming back in 3 on Talk Drive.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile. The home of common sense. This is Talk.
Man, we've been promoting this single all day on Talk. We want this to be the Christmas #1. It's basically a political dig at Sir Keir Starmer. It's tracked by Sir Starmer and the Granny Harmers. It's just hit #1 on the iTunes chart. You need to download it. We need to get it to be Christmas #1 because we want to convince the bloody BBC, who are refusing to play it because it's too political, because it's against the lefties. Just go download it. This is a little feeling, or even a little soupçon, of Sir Starmer and the Granny Harmers. Push the button now, Ames.
It'll be freezing this Christmas while our money goes abroad. It'll be freezing this Christmas. Rachel Reeves is a fraud. It'll be cold, so cold, without fuel at home this Christmas.
Quite seriously, the first time in British history that a politically motivated song, if I have anything to do with it and Talk does, will be Christmas #1. Hello to Gary, a veteran in Derbyshire. Just downloaded the song, Jez. Thank you to you and Mike and Julia for being our voice and speaking for us, where us mere mortals don't have a loud voice. God help us, I couldn't agree more. We'll always talk for you here on Talk. Of course we will. Jez, it snowed on Christmas Day 2008. My grandson was born early hours of the morning and he was named Kyle after you. Really? He will be 16 this Christmas, and it's Jackie in Dorset. Fancy being called Kyle after me, good God. Stuart in Perthshire shares my... I don't know whether I'm shocked about Joe Wheeler. He went, Jesus Christ, I've heard it all now. Studying vacuum cleaners. Does she get out often? talkTV, Jeremy. The Tories won't get back in. They've got the wrong leader in Kemi. Sorry, Max in Warwickshire. Max, a very good evening and a happy Christmas to you. Gary, we've done that one. David Ferguson. Jez, I love your optimism about getting that single to #1. Alas, I think that you are underestimating the lefty woke brigade and their squealing drive to cancel. And for that reason, you should promote it every 30 minutes, says David in Camberley, in Surrey, which is what I'm going to do. I don't know who this is. I spent... Graham Hatley or Hatley. I spent 30 years travelling by train from the South Coast and East Midlands to Aberdeen, where I used to work on the oil rigs and the worst weather conditions of the last century. It was the chaos of rain travel that finally broke me. Not working, yeah, I completely agree with that. 8 minutes to 7, 8 minutes away from Kev. Back to the phone lines on Talk Drive. We'll go to Southend. Dave, you're on Talk Drive. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Kyle. I'm afraid our country is suffering from self-harm. And what's happening is that I believe that we will revote this bunch of cowboys back in because that's the way our country is going. But there is a mechanism. You say that we can't get rid of Starmer. There is two mechanisms. The first one will never happen because there's no guts in the country, and that is a general strike, and it's been done before. I am old enough to know it did work before. But the second one, the mechanism in the Labour Party, is the NEC can recall Starmer, and the NEC is mostly the unions. The unions can remove him, but it takes the membership to tell the union leaders, remove him, or we will shut down our membership of the unions.
Right, hold on a second. Are you daft enough to think that any alternative led by the left-wing unions would be better or worse than Keir Starmer? Because nothing's going to be better than this government. He is speaking for the Labour Party. In fact, I suspect, and I could be wrong, that a lot of people in the Labour Party don't think he's left-wing enough, for God's sake. And I'm being serious with you there, Dave.
I understand what you're saying, Mr. Cole. What I'm saying is that I'm just coming back at you when you say you can't remove him. Yeah. The mechanism in the Labour Party is that as it starts. But the trouble is the people of this country have become so mealy-mouthed, jelly-livered, and cannot stand up for themselves anymore. We are pathetic, and I'll give you this. In 4 years' time when there's a general election, and hopefully we're both still alive, I will bet you a bottle of champagne that this lot get back into power.
I'll take that bet now, because over my dead body will that arrive. You're a good man. Happy Christmas, Dave in Southend. Let's go to Hampshire. Jenny, you're on Talk Drive. A very good evening. How are you?
Good evening. Fine, thank you, and happy Christmas to everyone.
Oh, bless you. Ryan's birthday today, by the way.
Oh, happy to Ryan, then. Have a good night.
He's 30.
Enjoy.
Well, I think he might have a big night if he plays his cards right. Anyway, crack on.
Right, yeah, this dipstick of a guy we call PM.
Yes.
Anti-democratic, anti-Christian, anti-British. Loads of money for abroad, but none for the British people. We're just a cash cow that just feeds his dirty, disgusting habits of feeding and making sure all our lovely little migrants are safe and warm at Christmas and round the year, because you don't give a monkey's toss about bloody Britain.
You know what? And I want to say this to you, Jenny, right? You're in Hampshire. When I listen to people like you, I also know that there will be the bedwetters, several of whom I know will go, oh, God, listen to this. This is not what we're supposed to be concerned about. No, it is. It is. And it's not, I don't know the right word to use. I've said it all day, I've said it all week, I've said it all month, and I've said it since this lot got in. I said it before this lot got in. Politicians need to understand that the British people have woken up to the injustices, the unfairness, and basically the crap way they have been treated. And I believe the British people are finding a voice, be that through Reform, Ben Habib, other organisations. I'm not advocating any. Maybe people will go back to the Tories. But I think genuinely that British people have learnt that they have a right to their voice. We really appreciate it. Wish you a very happy Christmas, Jenny in Hampshire. Let's head to the Wirral. This is the posh part of Liverpool, isn't it, right? This is where people get out the bath to have a wee. Claire, good evening. You're on Talk Drive. What's happening?
Good evening, Jeremy. Yes, I'm the posh one.
Are you? Posh up there, love. You're all right.
Yeah, kind of. Not really.
No.
I'm quite close to Birkenhead. I wouldn't really think that.
It's getting rougher by the minute, love. I'm joking. Crack on. What you got?
Yeah. Well, I agree with the two previous callers. I tried to call this morning onto Mike's show, but I didn't get a hearing. But I totally agree. And I think we've got to get militant. And that's the only way that we're going to get this regime out of power, because they're actually breaking this country. And militant, believe it or not, you know, the militants used to be Labour, and Thatcher gave militant a dirty word. And, you know, we've become very, very sort of, you know, lily-livered, you know, whatever.
You live in one of the... You live in one of the working class areas of this country. What do the people of the Wirral think of Keir Starmer?
I think everybody feels the same.
Yeah.
We're all very, very frightened of what he's doing. He's breaking this country. He's brought a wrecking ball to this country. And we need to get militant. And I'm not talking about Labour militant, because, you know, in Thatcher's time, Labour, you know, was a different kind of Labour.
Completely agree. Don't think me rude, Claire. I am out of time, or as Ian Collins would say, I hit the clock. Thank you very much indeed. Kevin O'Sullivan is here. That single's #1 on the iTunes charts. Have you heard the song?
Yeah, of course I have, yeah.
More than that, I've got to play a quick montage. Ryan's birthday. We've put together a little demonstration of our love for the big lanky git. Play it.
Happy birthday, Ryan. Love, Selena in Newcastle. Woo!
This is Darren from Carmarthen. A very happy birthday. You're doing a wonderful job. I take my hat off to you, having to work with Jeremy every day. Just joking, Jeremy.
Happy birthday, Ryan, from sunny Sunderland.
Happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you, happy birthday dear Ryan, happy birthday to you. Have a lovely evening with your wife Ryan, lots of love, Maddie from Essex.
You'll have a good night with your wife, because I had a good night with it. I'm joking. How are you? Oh, Kev's crying.
Oh, it was very moving.
Have you heard Adam from Burnley? Have you heard that one?
No.
You've got to play this for Kev. This man went, I've heard your songs, I'll give you one. Listen to this,
All
this
right,
is brilliant.
go on,
What do you mean
Adam.
you need a minute? You can't need a minute, it's got to be on tap. Kevin O'Sullivan's busy, you ready?
Away in other countries, no thought for the old. He's taken their payments, so now they are cold. He shafted the farmers and gone back on his word. Now, Keir, please do one, 'cause Labour is terrible.
Well, Adam, I'm going to forgive you your terrible singing for those wonderful lyrics. Well done. But on a serious note,
yes,
if this single does top the charts at Christmas, it would be a massive embarrassment for them. It's a sort of serious...
First ever politically motivated song, and the big question, my friend, on everybody's lips, will the BBC play it? I would love that issue.
I've got a long list of the number ones that the BBC won't play, wouldn't play. The BBC has always become Victorian and prudish about all sorts of records. We're not going to play that, so they better play this one. Just quickly before the show starts, we have an exclusive. Isabel Oakeshott will be joining me, and we'll be asking the big question: why won't the government tell you about the asylum seeker